Boom! Manager Zhong's desk was blown into pieces. Although Manager Zhong dodged it, he was still in a very sorry state. His hair was about to stand up in anger. Yun Chujo thought to herself, it seems that there is such a thing as being angry. Everyone was shocked by this unexpected turn of events. Was this Yun Chujo crazy? Even Yi Bingyu and Jin Ji did not expect that Yun Chujo would blow up Manager Zhong's desk. What did little Jiu want to do? Manager Zhong was about to go crazy from anger. I originally thought that you had just entered the sect and punished you to go to the number 8 reflection cave, but I did not expect you to be so willful. Then go to the number 10 reflection cave. Yun Chujo jumped and shouted, I refuse to accept it. I refuse to accept it. This is official vindictiveness, you shameless bastard. Take her away. Bring her to the 10th meditation cave immediately. The deadline is 4 months. Manager Zhong was furious and ordered his men to take Yun Chujo away quickly. Yun Chujo shouted, even if I admit defeat, what about that Mu Wu? If he didn't come to find trouble with me shamelessly, would I have made a mistake? Manager Zhong's mind was full of anger. When he heard Yun Chujia's words, he said, Mu Wu provoked me for no reason and was punished with a year's worth of sect resources. If he commits a crime again, he will definitely be severely punished. TCH, this punishment is like a forfeit. They are indeed colluding with each other. Yun Chujo muttered unwillingly. Manager Zhong felt his head hurt just by looking at her. He waved his hand repeatedly and let her go. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were anxious and wanted to go forward to argue. Yun Chujo gave them a look that said, calm down. Although the two of them did not understand what Yun Chujo was up to, they were used to listening to Yun Chujia's arrangements. They could only watch Yun Chujo being taken away. Old Man Yao watched from the corner with his hands behind his back. He raised his left foot and put it down again. Then he shook his head and left. The disciples who were eating melon seeds shone with the light of gossip and discussed among themselves. I think that Yun Chujo will lose half of her life this time. That is the number 10 reflection cave. Moreover, it will last for 4 months. How can she hold on? This is all her own doing. If she didn't blow up Manager Zhong's desk, she wouldn't have been punished to the number 10 reflection cave. TSK, I have to say this Yun Chujo is really too bold. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu became even more worried when they heard the crowd's discussion, but they could only listen to Yun Chujia's arrangements. Just as they were worried, Jin Ji's identity jade tablet started to vibrate, and Yun Chujia's voice came from inside. There were only 2 words, don't read it. Jin Ji frowned. It seemed like little Jiu made such a fuss on purpose. Could it be that her goal was to meditate? On the other side, Yun Chujo did not stop talking along the way. I am really wronged. I'm really sitting at home behind closed doors, and trouble comes from the sky. I'm so unlucky. I'm telling you, stay away from that Manager Zhong in the future. Someone like him who uses his power for personal gain will get into trouble sooner or later. Don't you feel that I'm quite wronged? I only hit that Mu Wu a few times. Is there a need to punish me so severely? When I come out of the cave of reflection, I'll still hit him. Those law enforcement disciples kept quiet. They thought to themselves, still want to hit him? It's not certain if you can come out alive. The cave of reflection on the 10th was not a joke. Moreover, it would take 4 months. Even if a weak chicken like her did not die, she would still be skinned alive. However, they didn't have any friendship with Yun Chujo, so they naturally wouldn't say anything. An hour later, the law enforcement disciples escorted Yun Chujo to the reflection cave. Yun Chujo originally thought that the reflection cave was just a bunch of broken caves. She did not expect that it was not the case at all. There was a teleportation formation on the ground, and there were people guarding it. The law enforcement disciples handed the punishment decision with the Great Seal of the Law Enforcement Department to a small leader, who was guarding the formation. That person looked at it and then sized up Yun Chujo. Stand inside the teleportation formation, and I'll send you to the 10th reflection cave now. TSK, you're really hitting a rock with an egg. I'm afraid that in less than half a month, your little life will be over, the small leader said with slight disdain. Yun Chujo pursed her lips and did not speak. She had a stubborn look on her face. The small leader curled his lips and began to form seals with his hands. A white light flashed and Yoon Chujio's figure disappeared from the spot. When Yoon Chujio regained her sight, she found herself in a simple cave. Although the cave was simple, it was quite spacious. It was probably convenient for the punished disciples to avoid wind blades and lightning. The temperature in the cave was very low. It was as cold as ice. Yoon Chujio took out firewood and started a bonfire. The temperature in the cave was slightly higher. Yoon Chujio looked around and knocked with a rolling pin, but she didn't find anything strange. She didn't know where the wind blades and lightning would come from. The reason why this guy tried to enter the meditation cave was partly to absorb the lightning and cultivate, and partly to study how the lightning came from the meditation cave. If she could find a way, she would be very happy. While Yoon Chujio was dreaming, she heard a slight noise. She was shocked. The wind blades were about to blow. Suddenly, wind blades shot out from the top of her head and the ground. Fuck! If she was not careful, she would be cut into 1,000 pieces. Fortunately, these wind blades were straight up and down. As long as she was agile, she could still avoid them. Yoon Chujio kept dodging the wind blades that shot out. Soon she was drenched in sweat. Damn it, this number 10 thought cave was not given to her for free. If these damn wind blades did not stop, she would be exhausted to death. After an hour, the wind blades finally stopped and the cave returned to peace. Yoon Chujio wiped the sweat on her head. She did not know how often these wind blades would blow. If they were very frequent, wouldn't she not feel at ease even when she slept? Also, why were there only wind blades and no lightning? If there were no lightning, she would be at a huge disadvantage. Just as this fellow was complaining, a bolt of lightning shot out from the ceiling and struck towards Yoon Chujio. A certain Jo almost jumped up in joy. After being struck, she closed her eyes comfortably and said, "Again, again." In the end, after waiting for a long time, no lightning struck again. This fellow was instantly discouraged. What was going on? Just this one bolt of lightning? This was not enough to fill the gaps between her teeth. This fellow sat on the ground dejectedly. If she had known this would happen, she would have blown up the law enforcement office. Perhaps she would have been thrown into the number 30 reflection cave. The lightning in the number 30 reflection cave was definitely more frequent and more powerful than the lightning here. However, she could not withstand the wind blades inside. She was really conflicted. Just as she was feeling vexed, another bolt of lightning came down from above her head. She immediately went up to meet it, muttering, "Come, don't be so stingy. Chop a few more times, preferably 180 times. The lightning lasted for about 15 minutes. A certain Jo wasn't too satisfied with it, but it was better to have it than not. After all, it was better to have it. Anyway, she was going to be locked up here for 4 months. When the 4 months were up, she would beat up anyone she disliked, and then she would be able to enter again. How was she so smart? After about 2 hours, a new round of wind blade attacks began. Because of her previous experience, Yoon Chujio was able to dodge the wind blade attacks with ease. Then she was happily struck by lightning. What was happiness? Happiness was being struck by lightning. This fellow's good mood disappeared when she was sleepy at night. Lightning was easy to deal with. If she was willing to be struck, then she would be struck. But the wind blade couldn't do it. If she wasn't careful, she might be cut into 1,000 pieces in her sleep. What should she do? Yoon Chujio finally understood why everyone felt that the reflection cave was terrifying. They might be able to deal with 1 or 2 waves of attacks, but these attacks that were separated by 2 hours made it impossible for them to relax and have a good rest. It would indeed be a torture if this continued. Yoon Chujio's thoughts were right, but she didn't know that lightning attacks were the most difficult to endure for the others. After all, the wind blade attack was straightforward, so it was easier to dodge it. However, lightning could find its target. Other than using the spiritual energy shield to block it, it could only endure it. This guy blinked his eyes. The idea was human. In order to have a good sleep, he had to think of a good way to dodge the wind blade. This guy glanced around and his eyes suddenly lit up. The wind blades shot out from the ceiling and the ground were straight up and down. If she created a cave on the sidewall, wouldn't that solve the problem? When this guy thought of this, he asked Xiaohei to start digging. Unexpectedly, Xiaohei said with a sad face, "Master, I don't know what material this stone wall is made of. I can't dig it." Yoon Chujio was stunned. She didn't expect that there was something that Xiao Hei couldn't dig. She put Xiao Hei away and took out a few sudden cracked talismans and threw them on the stone wall. Boom! Boom! After a few loud bangs, the side wall was still safe and sound. This guy rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment. It seemed that he could only use the large kitchen knife. Yun Chuzhou used the large kitchen knife and hacked hard, easily cutting off a piece of rock. Yun Chuzhou was very proud. She was already 99% sure that the large kitchen knife in her hand was the Heaven Punisher divine axe. Who would have thought that the large kitchen knife that she casually used was actually a divine weapon? Haha! This guy took the big kitchen knife and cut a side hole that was enough for a person to move. This guy thought that the stones cut off might be treasures, so he put all the stones into his storage ring. Yun Chuzhou laid a snow cashmere blanket in the side hole and tried it happily. It was perfect. She didn't expect that extreme joy would lead to sorrow. The wind blade was dodged. When the lightning came, it hit the blanket. Thick smoke billowed and the guy almost choked to death. Cough cough. Cough cough. A wise man must make a mistake after careful consideration. It's better to lie on a rock. The fellow could only take out a large kitchen knife to flatten the inside a little before lying down. Although it was a little painful, it was still better than choking to death. Thus, from this day on, the fellow began to live a blissful life with lightning strikes. Xiao Heinio and Xiao Mogu also rubbed against some lightning. However, Xiao Heinio was not satisfied. There was too little lightning. If he only absorbed a little, it would take a long time before he could break through. It would be best if he could go to a higher number of thought holes. Xiao Heinio rubbed his chin and pondered. He estimated that the next door to the 10th thought hole should be the 11th or 9th thought hole. Generally speaking, they were arranged from left to right. The right side of the 10th hole should be the 11th hole. Therefore, this guy started to dig the hole. Master, it's one thing for you to dig your own hole. But for you to dig someone else's hole, aren't you afraid that the sect will teach you a lesson? Xiao Heinio felt that she had broken her heart for this black-hearted master. What's there to be afraid of? There's no rule in the sect rules that forbids you from digging your own hole. At most, you can punish me for thinking about it. That's what I'm looking forward to. A certain Joe continued to dig. What if you run into another disciple? What if you coincidentally dig a hole and he thinks about it inside? A certain Joe's movements paused. That's right, what if she ran into someone else? Who cares? How can we run into each other so coincidentally? Let's dig first before we talk. A certain Joe continued to dig. A certain Joe's thoughts were quite simple. She thought that the hole and the hole shouldn't be too far apart. Who would have thought that even after 2 days of digging, she still couldn't dig to the end? Now this fellow was riding a tiger and could not get down. If she did not dig ahead, all her previous efforts would be wasted. Let's dig ahead. She did not know if there were other thought holes ahead. Gritting her teeth, she could only continue digging. After digging for another 2 days, when a certain Joe climbed out, she was so angry that she wanted to bang her head against the wall. In front of her was a lush forest. It was obvious that she had already left the area of the thought hole. Oh my God! Why did she dig it out just like that? She really didn't want to escape from prison. She looked around and saw that there was no one around before she crawled out of the cave. It wasn't easy to dig it out, so it was good to get some fresh air. A certain Joe was stretching and enjoying the fresh air when someone coughed. A certain Joe almost collapsed in fright. She turned around and saw that it was Old Man Yao. Old Man Yao was holding a small shovel in his hand and a wild vegetable in his hand. He was looking at her in a daze. A certain Joe coughed dryly. That Old Man Yao, what a coincidence. We are fated to meet each other. We are fated to not meet each other, so I came out to get some fresh air. Old Man Yao followed Yun Chujia's gaze and looked at the dog hole. He then looked at Yun Chuzhou and asked with a stiff face, That is the reflection cave? Since when did the reflection hole become a dog hole? He could enter and exit as he pleased? Yun Chuzhou rubbed her hands and laughed dryly. I just dug casually. Who would have thought that I would come here? This is all a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Are you digging wild vegetables? Do you want to go to the reflection hole with me? The corner of Old Man Yao's eyes twitched violently. From what she said, why did it feel like the reflection hole was like her living room? Who in their right mind would sit in the cave of reflection for no reason? The two of them fell into an awkward silence for a while. Old Man Yao pointed at the entrance of the cave. Go back quickly. It'll help you seal the entrance of the cave so that no one will find out. Stop fooling around. For months will pass very soon. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and took out a wine gourd from her storage ring. She giggled. This is the hush money. Old Man Yao glared at her, but he still took the wine gourd and sighed. There's a limit to what you can do. Don't dig anymore. The cave of reflection has existed for tens of thousands of years. If you destroy it, the higher-ups will not forgive you. Don't worry, I will fill it up. Well, I will go back now. See you later. After Yun Chujio said that, she went into the cave and waved her claws at Old Man Yao. Old Man Yao shook his head speechlessly. He walked to the cave and saw that the cave was sealed with stones. He couldn't help but smile. This little girl was prepared. Old Man Yao smeared some soil on the stone. Then, he took out a handful of seeds from his storage ring and scattered them on the ground. The seeds broke out of the ground in an instant and grew rapidly. Soon, they turned into large vines that covered the entrance of the cave. Old Man Yao cleaned up the footprints left by Yun Chujio one by one. He sighed and carried the small shovel to continue digging wild vegetables. A certain Joe mumbled as she blocked the passage with a stone. Damn, I was scared to death. Fortunately, I met Old Man Yao. It would be terrible if I met someone else. It seems that this hole was not dug randomly. Sigh. I have to fill up the hole even if I have to cry. It seems that this reflection hole is not adjacent to each other. Perhaps each hole is thousands of miles away. It is obviously not realistic to dig holes. It seems that I can only wait for 4 months before I can think of a way to go to the high-level reflection hole. Half a month later, the disciples of the Law Enforcement Department arrived at the teleportation array of the meditation cave. Due to Tianji Peak's application, Yun Chujio's meditation time has been reduced. Please let her out. The disciple of the Law Enforcement Department said as he handed the document to the small leader, who managed the teleportation array. Yo, I didn't expect Yun Chujio to be protected by a noble. Although it's only been half a month, I think she's only left with half her life. The leader said as he began to form a seal. Then he was stunned. According to common sense, Yun Chujio should have been teleported out after he formed a seal. Why didn't she come out? The leader and everyone looked at each other. The disciple of the Law Enforcement Department said in surprise, Could it be? Could it be that Yun Chujio has already died inside? That might be true. The corpse might have been turned into ashes by the lightning, which is why it wasn't teleported out. Someone echoed. That's not right either. At least the sect token and storage ring wouldn't have been turned into ashes. Why wasn't it sent out? The leader retorted. The Law Enforcement Division disciple didn't expect such a situation. He hesitated for a moment and asked, Then what do we do now? How do I report back? The leader clenched his teeth. He was clearly in a difficult position. Junior brother, I won't hide it from you. Although I'm in charge of this teleportation array, I can only control this teleportation array. I know nothing about the situation inside the cave. Also, without the document of your law enforcement office, you are not allowed to enter the cave. So, I think you should go back and report to your manager. The disciple of the law enforcement office had no choice but to bring his men back to the law enforcement office. What? Dead? How did she die in half a month? Manager Zhong stood up and asked in disbelief. His head buzzed. He had planned to let Yun Chujio die in the meditation cave, but it had only been half a month. How did she die? A handyman had died, but Tianji Peak had sent someone to find Elder Chu of the Law Enforcement Department to plead with him. They said that the mating period of the snow jade silkworm was coming, and they needed Yun Chujio's help. What the hell? What did the mating of the snow jade silkworm have to do with this damn Yun Chujio? Manager Zhong had no choice but to meet Elder Chu of the Law Enforcement Office and tell her what had happened. After hearing this, Elder Chu frowned and said, How about this? Go to the number 10 meditation cave and see for yourself. Although Manager Zhong was unwilling, he had no choice but to take Elder Chu's identity jade token and go to the teleportation array of the meditation cave. Manager Zhong explained the purpose of his visit. The little leader who was in charge of the teleportation array immediately asked him to stand inside the array, and then formed a seal with his hands. Unexpectedly, the teleportation was not successful. Everyone looked at each other. What was going on? There can only be one person in each cave in the Sigua cave. Is Yun Chujo still alive? But if she is not dead, why isn't she being teleported out? The little leader asked in confusion. Well, can we use the identity jade token to ask? Manager Zhong sincerely hoped that Yun Chujo was still alive. The leader shook his head. The identity jade token in the cave is invalid, but the voice transmission talisman is fine. But do you have Yun Chujio's voice transmission talisman? Although Manager Zhong didn't have Yun Chujio's voice transmission talisman, he felt that Jinji and Yi Bingyu should have it, so he asked the law enforcement disciples to bring them here. After Jinji and Yi Bingyu were brought here, Manager Zhong went straight to the point and asked, "Contact Yun Chujo with the voice transmission talisman and see if she's still alive. Why isn't she being sent up?" Jinji thought to herself, of course little Jo is alive. She's still alive and kicking. She had sent a voice transmission talisman to little Jo yesterday. Elder Ding of Tianji Peak had sent people to find her and Yi Bingyu in the mulberry garden. After she communicated with Yun Chujo, she told Elder Ding that Yun Chujo had to be the one to handle the mating of the snow jade silkworms. That was why Tianji Peak had sent people to talk to Yun Chujo. Jinji took out the voice transmission talisman and told Yun Chujo about what had happened. After a while, Jinji said to the leader, "Little Jo said that a wind blade is blowing in the number 10 meditation cave. It might affect the teleportation array. I'll let you try again in 2 hours." Manager Zhong was relieved when he heard that Yun Chujo was still alive. The little leader in charge of the teleportation array felt as if his heart was going crazy. After so many years, he had never encountered such a situation. Could it really be the problem of the wind blade? Of course, the wind blade was not a problem, but the problem was a certain Jo. A certain Jo hid in the side hole, so she was not teleported out. After receiving Jinji's voice transmission talisman, this guy immediately started to seal the side hole. However, there was a problem. Even if the hole was sealed, it could still be seen that it had been artificially dug. Only a fool would not be able to see it. This fellow rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment. Then, he took out a lot of mud from the Great Void Mystic Realm and quickly painted the walls on both sides of the hole. Only then did this fellow nod his head in satisfaction. He believed that no one would be bored enough to dig the mud on the wall. Moreover, even if they dug the mud, it wouldn't be so coincidental that they dug the hole that she dug. It's a pity that the mud hasn't dried yet. Otherwise, I could write on it that little Jo is here for a trip or something. A certain Jo felt that it was quite a pity. Just as this guy was mumbling, a white light flashed in front of his eyes. When he regained his sight, he was already sent outside. "Yo, Manager Zhong, you came to pick me up personally? Could it be that you feel guilty so you came to apologize to me?" Yun Chujo looked at Manager Zhong and said with a faint smile, You, humph, I won't lower myself to your level. This time Tianji Peak is pleading for you. Next time you won't be so lucky." After saying those words angrily, Manager Zhong left angrily. Yun Chujo shouted at his back, "Hey? I'll visit you when I have time. Let's continue to hurt each other." Manager Zhong staggered, snorted, and left quickly. Yun Chujo curled her lips and then turned to look at the little leader who was guarding the array. "I'll have to trouble Senior Marshal Brother to buy a bag of tea leaves for everyone with these spirit stones." The little leader saw that Yun Chujo had actually given him a total of 100,000 spirit stones. The expression on his face immediately turned from disdain to enthusiasm. "Junior Marshal Sister Yun, you're really too polite. As the saying goes, when the end is near, the end is near. In the future, you definitely won't come to meditate again." Yun Chujo smiled and didn't say anything. "Idiot. If I didn't come again, would I give you so many spiritual stones?" It wasn't like she had no money to spend. After Yun Chujo and the other two left the meditation cave, Yun Chujo asked about the situation for the past half a month and then went straight to Tianji Peak. After Yun Chujo expressed her gratitude, she continued, "Elder Ding, of course, We are willing to go to the mulberry garden to help. But last time, because of this matter, the law enforcement department almost locked me in the number 18 meditation cave. So this time? You don't have to worry. I'll handle this matter. You can go to the mulberry garden to help with your worries, but I can't give you so many contribution points this time. Elder Ding, you're being too polite. We've been friends for a long time, so how can I still need contribution points? Elder Ding nodded. This little girl was not bad, at least she was not too greedy. Well, Elder Ding, we don't want the contribution points. I heard that the silk of the snow jade silkworm is very good at making clothes. Can you give us 10 or 8 pieces? If we raise the silkworm once and don't even have a piece of the snow jade silkworm's clothes, how embarrassing would that be? Elder Ding. She wasn't greedy. She was simply plucking the feathers of wild geese. The two of them bargained, and in the end, they settled on one piece of the snow jade silkworm's cloth for each person. A certain Joe felt that she had to have a good relationship with Elder Ding. Therefore, she began to remedy the situation. Elder Ding, it's not that I'm greedy. This person needs motivation to work hard, right? Besides, you've paid us, so you want to order us around? Elder Ding snorted coldly. He finally understood that Yun Chujio only had a good mouth, but her heart was black. Elder Ding, I won't let your cloth go to waste. Well, let me give you a suggestion worth 1,000 gold coins, Yun Chujio said mysteriously. Elder Ding was stunned. What suggestion? According to the current scale of reproduction, there will be more and more snow jade silkworms on Tianji Peak. The golden silk mulberry trees in the mulberry garden will not be enough. You'd better expand the mulberry garden. Elder Ding glanced at her. What kind of valuable suggestion is this? Even if you don't say it, I plan to expand the mulberry garden. Yun Chujio giggled. This shows that we have the same idea. However, you may have overlooked one thing. Behind the mulberry garden is a cliff. Even if we expand it, there isn't enough space. Elder Ding was stunned. He hadn't thought about this. If they expanded the mulberry garden, they might have to demolish some buildings. Elder Ding, our Tianji Peak doesn't have space, but other peaks do. You can rent their place and pay them some rent every year. Of course, you can also help them build a mulberry garden and provide them with early-stage seed silkworms. However, you can't help them for nothing. 1/3 of the profits from their mulberry garden must be given to our Tianji Peak. Of course, you can give them half of the profits and give them some leeway to bargain. Elder Ding was stunned for a moment. Obviously, he didn't understand what Yun Chujio meant. Then he stood up and said, Excellent. 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 Elder Ding rubbed his hands excitedly. You little girl, you're really smart. Go to the mulberry garden and work first. I'll report this to the peak master. Yun Chujio nodded and left Elder Ding's courtyard with Jinji and Yi Bingyu. Of course, this guy wasn't giving Elder Ding advice out of kindness. This guy had his own tricks. It would be best if Tianji Peak had mulberry gardens on the other 6 peaks. In that case, all the peaks would have to protect her, the snow jade silkworm elder. When the time came, even if she caused some trouble, she would have someone to speak up for her, right? Soon, the mating period of the snow jade silkworm ended, and the breeding of the little silkworms was very successful. Elder Ding also fulfilled his promise and gave each of the 3 people a snow jade silkworm silk. A certain Joe thought that she should find someone to beat up. Who should she beat up? Therefore, this guy started to cheat all the members of the primordial chaos sect. It was a pity that no one dared to provoke Yun Chujio, not knowing if it was because Yun Chujio's performance last time was too fierce or because of Tianji Peak. A certain Joe was depressed. Why was it so hard to cheat? She had no choice but to open the Encyclopedia of Affairs of the Primordial Chaos Sect and read through the items one by one, trying to find the appropriate items. Finally, she found one of the items and her eyes lit up. The 20th rule of the sect was, trespass into a forbidden area. According to the severity of the plot, if the plot is light, the offender will be punished with meditation, and if the plot is serious, the offender will be expelled from the primordial chaos sect. A certain Joe touched her chin. This was good. As long as she knew the rules, she would be able to enter the meditation cave as she wished. This was it. However, there were several forbidden areas in the primordial chaos sect. Where should she go? Forget it, she could just find one. Even if there were disciples guarding it, she might not be able to enter. Thus, on a dark and windy night 1 month later, a certain Joe sneaked to the back mountain of Yuhing Peak. After avoiding a few patrolling disciples, she saw the words "Forbidden Area" that were as red as blood as she wished. A certain Joe dashed into the forbidden area at lightning speed. She thought that something strange would happen when she arrived at the so-called forbidden area, such as where she would be teleported to, or maybe there was a room inside. Who could tell her why this barren land was called a forbidden area? She guessed that the patrolling disciples would come back soon. She had just barged in and didn't do anything. At most, she would be punished to the meditation cave of number 5 or number 6. She would have to do something. However, this place was bare. How could she cause trouble? This fellow scratched his ears and cheeks as he spun a few times. Got it, this fellow took out a stack of sudden rupture talismans and threw them into the distance. He thought to himself with delight. Such a huge commotion, and this should be considered as destroying the forbidden area. He could definitely be punished severely. He was really smart. This fellow was elated for only a few seconds before tragedy struck. Following several loud bangs, the entire forbidden area began to sink. Troublemaker Joe wanted to run away, but sadly discovered that she was unable to move at all. It was as if she was trapped in her original spot. Heavens, she finally understood what it meant to seek death by playing tricks. She was one. Was it too late to regret now? Amidst the flying dust, the miserable a certain Joe was regretting when she discovered that she was slowly rising up. A certain Joe looked down in disbelief and saw a spire rising up from the bottom of her butt. A certain Joe. Fuck? Did she accidentally trigger some mechanism or remove some seal? The most important thing now was, how was she going to leave this damned spire? She didn't want to be the mascot of this spire. The few patrolling disciples heard a huge explosion and rushed to the edge of the forbidden area. Then they saw the following scene under the dim moonlight. A black ancient pagoda slowly rose. A little girl sat on the top of the pagoda. If it wasn't for the little girl screaming for help like a pig being slaughtered, they would have thought that the scene was quite beautiful. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then someone exclaimed, "Isn't that Yun Chujio? Why did she run into the forbidden area? And what's going on with that pagoda?" "Aya, we don't have the time to study what's going on right now. It's better to save her quickly and report to the sect." "Wait. That's a forbidden area, we can't go in there. Besides, what if we get hung on the pagoda when we go in? We should first report to the elders for instructions." A garlic nose stopped them. Just as they were discussing, Yun Chujio suddenly disappeared from the top of the tower. A second before Yun Chujio lost consciousness, she only had one thought. That damn garlic nose, just you wait for her to come out and beat him up first. When the disciples saw Yun Chujio disappear, they became even more anxious. Where did Yun Chujio go? Not long after, Master Bailey and the other peak masters of the primordial chaos sect arrived. Everyone was shocked when they saw the black tower in the forbidden area. They had never known that there was a black tower in the forbidden area at the back of the mountain of Yuhing Peak. Of course, this was because no one had ever used a sudden rupture talisman to blow up the forbidden area. Master Bailey asked briefly what had happened. Was it that little girl Yun Chujio again? Ever since she entered the sect, she seemed to have never stopped. It was really strange that a small handyman could make such a fuss. Naturally, Sect Master Bailey and the other peak masters would not rashly step into the forbidden area together. If they were all finished, then the Chaos Origin sect would also be finished. Therefore, Mountain Master He of Yuhing Peak unhesitatingly entered the forbidden area. After stepping into the forbidden area, there was nothing unusual. The black tower continued to rise until it finally stopped moving. Mountain Master He counted. This black tower had a total of 9 floors. At the bottom floor there was a similarly pitch-black door. Above the door, there were 3 large characters written in ancient characters. He did not recognize them. Mountain Master He did not recognize them, but Mountain Master Bailey did. Those 3 characters were Azura Prison. When Mountain Master Bailey's words left his mouth, everyone was stunned. Azura Prison? Why did it sound so scary? How could there still be something with such a murderous aura in the primordial chaos sect? Would its appearance bring disaster to the primordial chaos sect? Mountain Master, he raised his spiritual energy barrier to push the pitch-black door, but there was no response. He gritted his teeth and raised his hand, and a huge spiritual tiger pounced at the pagoda door. Unexpectedly, the spiritual tiger was bounced back by the pagoda door. If not for Mountain Master he dodging in time, he might have been bitten back. Everyone could not help but frown when they saw the situation. This pagoda was really strange. It seemed that they still had to make a long-term plan. During this time they had already arranged for disciples to find Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu, and had them use sound transmission talismans to contact Yun Chujio. However, the sound transmission talismans could not be sent out at all, and the identity jade plate did not respond. In the end, Master Bailey gave the order to have people guard the surroundings strictly, and to report any situation at any time. A certain Jiu, the troublemaker, had already slowly woken up at this time, and was somewhat dumbfounded when she saw the scene in front of her. She was currently in a huge stone room, and the surrounding stone walls were hung with corpses, lifelike corpses. A certain Jiu cursed in her heart. Fuck, why didn't I meet a large coffin or a dead person recently? Was he possessed? This guy was really bold. He walked over to the corpses and observed them carefully. Other than the lifeless corpses, they were no different from a living person. There were men and women, but most of them were middle-aged or old. The clothes on their bodies were in the style of the ancient times, and there was no uniform logo. It was obvious that they were not from the same family or sect. Yun Chujio originally planned to pick up the loot, but unfortunately, these people had nothing on their hands. They did not have storage rings, and their hair was disheveled. They did not even have hairpins. Fuck, maybe they have already been robbed. Otherwise, how could there be nothing? This guy did not get a storage ring, so naturally he could not determine the identity of these people. It was rare for this guy to have a shred of sympathy. It was quite pitiful for these people to hang around here. It was better to bring them out and find a place to bury them. Once they were buried, they could continue to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Thus, a certain Jiu removed the corpses from the wall and stored them into her storage ring. After a lot of work, she finally stored the corpses into her storage ring. Only then did this guy begin to carefully examine this stone room. The stone slabs and walls were all smooth bluestone slabs without any decorative patterns. Yun Chujio searched around but could not find an exit. It was as if the entire stone room was one. This guy had a big heart. He yawned and said, "I've been busy for half the night. Let's sleep first. There's nothing that can't be solved by a good night's sleep." Of course, this guy still let Xiao Hei out to be on guard and then fell into a deep sleep. The whole night was peaceful and nothing unusual happened. The entire stone room was so quiet that one could even hear a pin drop on the ground. Yun Chujio felt that since this was a tower, there must be a passage leading to another level. As long as one searched carefully, they would definitely be able to find it. It had to be said that this guy had the confidence of a mystery no matter what. After searching one round, he could not find it. He looked around again but still could not find it. This fellow lost his patience and began to hack at the wall with a large kitchen knife. Damn it, there is no door. I will hack a door out myself. A disciple responsible for guarding outside was surprised to find that the Black Tower actually trembled for a moment and immediately reported this news to the higher-ups. By the time everyone arrived, the Black Tower had already returned to normal. Therefore, everyone thought that the disciple was seeing things. He was really making a fuss out of nothing. A certain Jiu, who had built the gate in the Black Tower, had already been transported to a new level. A certain Jiu was proud. With a kitchen knife in hand, she had everything under the heavens. This level was still filled with corpses. A certain Jiu followed the principle of releasing a flock of sheep as well as a sheep, and put all the corpses into her storage ring. This fellow thought to himself, could it be that this Black Tower was a corpse-hiding tower? Who would be so bored as to put all the corpses into the tower and hang them? Was she crazy? After putting away the corpses, a certain Jiu did not find an exit. She took out a large kitchen knife again. Yes, she was building a door. The disciple in charge of guarding the tower was once again surprised to find that the black tower trembled and quickly reported this news to the higher-ups. Then when everyone arrived, the black tower regained its calm. Mountain Master, he was so angry that he directly transferred the disciple, who lied about the military intelligence, away. Mountain Master, he had a very good reason. If his eyesight wasn't good, he wouldn't be in charge of the guard duty. A certain Joe arrived at the third floor with only 2 strikes, and she still received a pile of corpses. This time, before Yun Chujo could start chopping, she had just taken out her kitchen knife when she was transported to the 4th floor. The 4th floor was still filled with corpses. A certain Joe sighed as she collected the corpses. Damn it, she was clearly here to scam. How did she become a corpse collector now? Fortunately, the 5th floor was no longer a corpse, but to a certain Joe it was better to be a corpse. A demonic beast was staring at her like a tiger eyeing its prey. That demonic beast looked very similar to the bloodthirsty lion. The only difference was that this demonic beast had a horn on its head. Fuck, it was actually a 47th level golden-furred hoe. 47th level was equivalent to the 9th floor of the spiritual space realm for humans. Not to mention her, even if Old Man Bailey came, it would be a waste. That overlord beast speaks but doesn't act. It would be great to have friends come from afar. Why don't we have a good chat about life? No, Shoushang? Yun Chujo decided to hook up with him first. What if this Jin Maoho was more understanding? Jin Maoho rolled his eyes in disdain. Stupid human. Well, Lord Ho, are you hungry? I have all kinds of meat and vegetables here. I have everything from flying in the sky, running on the ground, and swimming in the water. As long as you need it, I can give it to you. Jin Maoho ignored her and expressed its needs with practical actions. That was to eat her. Yun Chujo saw that her strategy of hooking up with him had failed and immediately shouted in exasperation, "Don't be so shameless. If you fight me head-on, who knows who will die?" Jin Maoho roared angrily. Its roar contained a huge pressure that could attack humans. It felt that once it cried out, that weak human chick would collapse to the ground. It might even bleed from its 7 orifices and die. Who would have thought that the human little girl would act as if nothing had happened and even throw a big bag of things at it? Jin Maoho used its claws to pull, and little Joe's secret weapon, the chili face, hit Jin Maoho's face. Jin Maoho was so hot that tears and tears flowed down its face as it roared furiously. Yun Chujo did not take the opportunity to attack Jin Maoho. She knew her own limits. Even if Jin Maoho's eyes were blinded by the chili noodles, her attack would not cause any substantial damage to it. Moreover, a certain Joe knew that Jin Maoho's biggest attack method was to roar. Unfortunately, it was useless against her. She only needed to dodge its physical attacks. This guy began to chop the wall with a big kitchen knife. As he did so, he shouted, "Chi Ling, I'm warning you. Quickly let me out, or I'll build a door myself." This guy was very thorough. Jin Maoho must have been reared by the Chi Ling of the Black Tower or a formation beast. Rather than fighting with Jin Maoho, it was better to fight with the Chi Ling. The disciples who were on guard outside the formation were surprised to find that the Black Tower trembled a little. The disciple remembered what had happened before and endured it. He did not report it. If he was also labeled as having bad eyesight, it would be terrible. Jin Maoho's tears flowed all over the floor and finally eased the discomfort in his eyes. He stared at Yun Chujo, who was building the door with his bloodshot eyes. "Look at the hidden weapon," Yun Chujo said and threw something at Jin Maoho. Jin Maoho thought that Yun Chujo was throwing chili noodles this time and jumped to the side in fright. Then he heard the human girl giggle. "You idiot! I threw flour. You are even afraid of flour. It's really a small flower." Jin Maoho roared in anger, but it was useless to Yun Chujo. "You'd better save your strength. No matter how loud you shout, it's useless to me. Get lost. I'm going to build a door. Yun Chujo waved her claws in disgust. Jin Maoho was so angry that his hair was standing on end. With a roar, he pounced on Yun Chujo again. Look at the hidden weapon. Jin Maoho thought to himself that this little ant must be lying to him again. So he used his claws to slap it. Yes, he was once again smacked by the chilly face. Jin Maoho, who was covered in tears, once again heard the little girl's arrogant laughter. Emma, this is the first time I've met a demon beast as stupid as you. Fuck, it was simply impossible to guard against. Yun Chujo took advantage of Jin Maoho's snot and tears to continue building the door. The disciple in charge of guarding outside the forbidden area noticed that the black tower was trembling again. This time, he was careful and called all the people in charge of guarding to look at it together. Everyone rubbed their eyes. Oh God, the black tower was really trembling. The leader quickly reported the news to the higher-ups. Soon Master Bailey and the 6 Peak Masters rushed over. However, when they arrived, the black tower had already stopped trembling. This time, because many people had seen it, there was naturally no question of whether their eyesight was good or not. Mountain Master, he touched his nose guiltily, as if he had wronged the previous disciple. Regarding the reason why the black tower was trembling, everyone guessed, could it be that the black tower was going to sink into the ground again? As for Yun Chujo, they could basically determine that the little girl was already dead. However, this was all her own doing and could not be blamed on others. At this moment, a certain Jiao, who was playing tricks, was engaging in a prolonged battle with Jin Maoho. Jin Maoho had learned a lesson. No matter what Yun Chujo threw, it would dodge to avoid being fooled again. However, this way its attack would be restricted. In addition, Yun Chujo was as slippery as a little loach, so it could not catch her at all. Hey, we can't continue like this. We won't be able to determine the winner in a short time. Don't you think this is a waste of your life? How about we decide the winner with one move? Yun Chujo said with a smile while dodging. Jin Maoho was already impatient. Hearing Yun Chujo's words, it stopped its attack and widened its eyes to listen to Yun Chujo's follow-up. Let's compete to see who can jump farther. If you can't jump as far as I can, you'd better stay at the side obediently and don't disturb me while I'm building the door. If I can't jump as far as you can, I'll let you eat me obediently. How about it? Do you dare? Jin Maoho curled its lips in disdain. It didn't dare? Could it be that its 4 legs couldn't jump over her 2 legs? Alright, since you agree, let's begin. You won't go back on your word, right? Jin Maoho growled in disdain. Apparently, he felt that Yun Chujo's question was simply insulting him. Alright, then I'll jump. Watch carefully. Yun Chujo drew a line on the ground and then leaped lightly, jumping about 30 feet. Jin Maoho simply scoffed. This little noob jumped so close and she actually had the nerve to compete with it? Even with half of its strength, it could jump farther than her. Jin Maoho raised its neck and was about to walk to the starting point of Yun Chujo's jump when Yun Chujo said, Hey, do you dare to jump somewhere else? Jin Maoho growled in disdain. Wherever it jumped, it could beat that little human weakling. Then it saw that little human weakling draw a line 1 foot away from the wall. Hey, you jump. Jump in the direction of the wall. Jin Maoho. Jin Maoho was so angry that he almost fainted. Shameless. Too shameless. How could a human be so shameless? If it took off there, would that be a long jump? That would be suicide, alright? Yo, you don't dare to jump anymore? TSK, how about it, you've lost, right? A willing loser admits defeat. If you don't want to lose the face of the demon beast, then obediently stand by the side and watch me build the door. Of course, if you don't care about your face, then you can pretend that nothing has happened. Anyway, you demonic beasts don't have so-called moral integrity. Yun Chujo hugged her shoulders and said disdainfully while shaking her feet. Jin Maoho really wanted to go back in time. If that was the case, he definitely wouldn't agree to make a bet with this insidious, treacherous, and thick-skinned little girl. However, it was too late to say anything. As a level 47 demonic beast, it naturally could not go back on its words. Jin Maoho roared a few times, but it still walked to a corner with its head drooping. It lay there and glared at Yoon Chujio with incomparable hatred. Yoon Chujio nodded with satisfaction. TSK, don't tell me you still keep your promise. Here, I'll give you some delicious food. Play by yourself. I'm going to build the door. As Yoon Chujio spoke, she took out a demon beast corpse from her storage ring and threw it to Jin Maoho. Then she continued to build the door with a large kitchen knife. Jin Maoho did not want to eat this food, but it was too aggrieved. Therefore, it turned its anger into appetite and started to eat. Yoon Chujio only hacked a few times before a white light flashed in front of her eyes. She had already reached the 6th level of the Black Tower. There were no corpses or demonic beasts on this level. There were wind blades everywhere, and there was nowhere to hide. The defensive spirit tools and immortal tools on Yoon Chujio's body were all shattered, and she could only barely rely on her spiritual energy shield to hold on. Damn it, I've suffered a great loss this time. Once I return to before liberation, there's nothing left. Greed 9's heart ached so much that she could not take it anymore. At most, in 15 minutes, her spiritual energy shield would not be able to hold on anymore. What should she do? Hide in the Great Void Mystic Realm? It seemed like there was no other way, but this fellow felt that she could not let this damned Black Tower off so easily. Hence, she supported her spiritual energy shield to a corner and continued to build the door. This fellow discovered that the walls she had cut would no longer have wind blades shooting out. It was so magical, wasn't it? This fellow grinned happily. Oh cut, oh cut, oh cut, oh cut, oh cut. Yoon Chujio forced the 3 in her dantian to continuously spit out thunder spirit energy, so that she could continue to support the spirit energy barrier. Then she began to jump up and down to cut the walls. Chi-Ling of the Black Heart Liver, I'm warning you. If you don't let me out, I'll chop this place into a hornet's nest. I'll let you have a good ventilation everywhere. The people outside the Black Tower noticed that the Black Tower seemed to be having a seizure, and it was trembling non-stop. Damn, it seemed like the Black Tower wasn't going back underground, it seemed like it was going to collapse. Could it be that it had been in disrepair for a long time? At this moment, the Black Tower stopped trembling. The reason was very simple. A certain Joe, who was chopping the wall, had been teleported to the 7th floor. This fellow was extremely proud in her heart. With a large kitchen knife, she was invincible. If she had known that the big kitchen knife was so good, she wouldn't have suffered so much. Obviously, this guy was too proud. When she regained her sight, she found that everything was pitch black. She quickly took out the luminous pearl to illuminate the area. This guy was really shocked when he saw the scene in front of him. If this guy wasn't so bold, he would have already fainted. The scene before her eyes was clearly the legendary Hell's Palace. The surroundings were filled with screams of agony, wails of oil, heart gouging and dismembering. All in all, it was a cruel torture that was unbearable to look at. Those little ghosts were all strangely shaped. They had green faces and fangs, and they had blood-red tongues sticking out. It was extremely terrifying. Before Yoon Chujio could finish her observation, she felt that she was being held down by someone. She wanted to break free, but she could not. It was as if all the spirit energy and strength in her body had disappeared. At this moment, there was suddenly light in the room, but it was flickering, making it even more eerie and terrifying. She turned her head and looked. To her left was a ghost with a bull's head, and to her right was a ghost with a horse's face. Was this the legendary bull's head and horse's face? Just as Yoon Chujio was thinking about it, her body was forcefully brought to the front of a desk. A fierce-looking man with a full beard glared at her fiercely. Yoon Chujio. Now that your life is over, that's why you came to the netherworld. You committed a lot of sins when you were alive, so from now on, you will have to endure the torture of the 18 levels of hell endlessly, the man said fiercely. Yoon Chujio blinked her eyes. From what you said, you are the king of hell? That's right, it's me. Take him away and be tortured. The king of hell said impatiently. Wait. Shouldn't the king of hell have a judge? Shouldn't he tell me the time, name, and process of all the people I've killed? You want me to receive the punishment just like that? Isn't that too against the procedure? I'll die at least once, so let me see the whole process. This isn't the fake king of hell, is it? Yoon Chujio said with a face full of regret. Hell's king was dumbfounded. You're already a ghost, why are you still asking for the complete set of procedures? You're simply sick. Since you want to see the complete set of procedures, this king will satisfy you. However, the judge happened to be out on an errand, so you can wait here first. Look at the fate of these cultivators. Hell's king's eyes flickered for a moment. He said coldly. Okay, no problem. I love to see people being tortured. It's best to make their screams louder. I always feel that their screams are not so sincere. Yoon Chujio said excitedly. King Yama felt very tired. How could there be such a pervert? Normally, when they saw such a horrifying scene of torture, shouldn't they be trembling in fear? Hey, that kid who fried people in the frying pan. Right, I'm talking about you. You should at least take off his clothes and throw them inside. If his clothes have heat insulation, wouldn't your efforts be in vain? Also, that one who was cut into 1,000 pieces, the knife you're holding is too big, right? I reckon that the person who can't be cut into 1,000 pieces will only be a skeleton. Hurry up and change to a small knife. The one who dug out the heart. I'm too embarrassed to scold you. Before you became a ghost, didn't you not even kill a chicken? Don't you know how fast, accurate, and ruthless you are? You're so hesitant and dilly-dallying. I really can't stand watching you. King of Hell looked at Yoon Chujio, who was chattering away in a daze. Why did he feel that this little girl was more suitable to be King of Hell than him? Oh, King of Hell, let's talk about it. I see that your underlings are not very familiar with the business. How about I help you train? Of course, I can't train for nothing. You should at least pay me some compensation. Oh right, what is the currency of the underworld? Is it the underworld currency? Although Yoon Chujio could not move her body, her vivid facial expression was enough to represent her greedy face. The King of Hell did not want to speak, nor did he want to listen to the little girl's chatter. Hence, he waved his hand and Yoon Chujio could not move except for her eyeballs. The King of Hell suddenly felt that the entire underworld had become quiet. He let out a long breath. This was the familiar smell. However, he still felt that his heart was stifled. Why was that little girl not afraid? This didn't make sense. Yama frowned and thought for a moment. It must be because this little girl wasn't tortured, so she wasn't afraid. After a while, a judge-like person walked in. Yama waved his hand, and Yoon Chujio regained her ability to speak. Yama patted the startled wood on the table. Oxhead, Horseface, bring the new ghost Yoon Chujio over. The judge will read out her sins. Yoon Chujio was brought to the front of the table. The judge took out the life and death book and read out without any fluctuation in his tone. Yoon Chujio, due to the heavy sins of killing, my life has come to an end. Hey! Old judge, don't say these useless things. I have become a ghost, so I naturally know that I am dead. Tell me what sins I have committed. Who have I killed, when and where? And why did I kill them? The judge's face stiffened. Old man. He was only middle-aged, all right? The judge raised his right hand, and a 3-foot-tall sin book appeared in his arms. The judge's eyes twitched violently. If he finished reading, would he die of exhaustion from foaming at the mouth? A certain Joe said with anticipation, Old judge, read it. You're not thinking of slacking off, are you? Which judge doesn't read the sin words? You're not a fake judge, are you? The judge glanced at Yama, but Yama didn't say anything. He had no choice but to pick up the book of sin and read it. What he read was that his mouth was dry. How could this damn Yoon Chujio kill so many people? Wait a minute. Yoon Chujio suddenly interrupted the judge. The judge heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. This little girl was probably tired of listening to it. He could finally be liberated. Unexpectedly, Yoon Chujio bared her little white teeth. Well, what do you people in the Hades usually eat? Get me a serving. I'm so hungry that I don't want anything else. Shut up. Continue reading. King of Hell was so angry that he almost threw the wooden stick in Yoon Chujio's face. You're here to die. You're not here to sightsee. You still want to eat. Eat what? The judge had no choice but to continue reading sadly. A certain Joe would ask about some details from time to time, for example. Wait a minute, why don't I remember killing this person? How did I kill him? Who else was there when I killed him? Wait a minute, when I killed this person, what color of clothes did I wear? What style of hairpin was on my head? Hey, how many did I kill? What 102nd? That can't be right. Why do I remember that it was 101? You can't give me too many calculations, you can read it again. Finally, the judge spat out white foam and fainted. TSK TSK. King of Hell. How do you think you became King of Hell? The little brat under you is not familiar with the business. If you get a judge to read a book of sins, you can even make yourself faint. I think this hell of yours is probably ghostly, Yun Chujo said with disdain. King of Hell was so angry that he was twitching. He shouted, "Don't bother about the book of sins. Bring her over and torture her directly. Pick the most powerful one first. Use that one to fry." Wait, I have something to say. King of Hell saw that Yun Chujo had something to say and felt that she must be afraid. He said proudly, "What do you want to say? Beg for mercy? No way." Beg your head. You dare to play tricks in front of me? Bullshit hell. Is this how it works in hell? Just put on a show. Yama, look, your crown is upside down. Yama subconsciously touched the beaded curtain of the crown and realized that it was not upside down. He suddenly realized that he had been fooled. You want to lie to me in a small illusion? I have never been to the netherworld, so I'm just playing with you. Now I'm not in the mood to play with you. Get lost. Yun Chujo said coldly. As she spoke, the netherworld in front of her suddenly disappeared. At this time she was still in a stone room. Yun Chujo took out a large kitchen knife and gestured in the air. Qi Ling, don't bother. Even if you get me to the 8th and 9th levels, I'm not afraid of you. Other than demonic beasts, illusions, and wind blades, what else do you have? If you know what's good for you, then quickly release me. Otherwise, I'll turn your black tower into a hornet's nest. Yun Chujo faintly heard a disdainful snort, and was then transported to the 8th level. Yun Chujo opened her eyes and saw countless remnant souls baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they pounced on her. Not only was Yun Chujo not afraid, she even laughed so hard that she fell backwards. Qi Ling, is your brain damaged? You actually used remnant souls to deal with me? Ha ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. Damn, I never knew there was such a stupid Qi Ling. Don't tell me you don't have a brain at all? Yun Chujo held up her spiritual energy cover and laughed heartily. Qi Ling, who was hiding somewhere, felt that this guy was most likely sick. What was wrong with remnant souls? Remnant souls were also very powerful, okay? Moreover, these remnant souls are the remnant souls of ancient cultivators, and there are many of them. It's simply too easy to kill you. Laugh. Laugh. In a moment you won't even be able to cry. At this moment, the little girl took out a jade bottle from her storage ring. It seemed to be an ancient green jade. How could she have an ancient green jade porcelain bottle? Just as the weapon spirit was puzzled, it saw the little girl open the bottle cork. Whoosh, 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 several remnant souls floated out. Then the little girl took out another jade bottle, and countless remnant souls floated out of it. The weapon spirit watched helplessly as the remnant souls released by the little girl were twice as many as what it had produced. Fuck, there was no way to live. Where did this monster come from? It was fine that she had a broken kitchen knife in her hand, but she actually had a remnant soul? How could she have a remnant soul? Moreover, it was the remnant soul of an ancient cultivator? Yun Chujo did not care what the weapon spirit was thinking. With a wave of her hand, the remnant souls of both parties clashed together. Yun Chujo sneakily attacked from the side from time to time and kept persuading them to surrender. Hey, I say that you remnant souls should quickly surrender. Do you see my friends? They are so comfortable following me outside, but you can only stay here. Don't you feel aggrieved? The colorful world outside is waving at you. and the girls and boys outside are smiling at you. Come into my bottle quickly. This is the best place for you. Although those remnant souls were a little muddle-headed at the beginning, they became clear-headed as they fought with their spiritual senses. When they heard Yoon Chujio's words, they could not help but be tempted. Who would be willing to be enslaved by the tool spirit in this black tower? Since those remnant souls could go outside, why couldn't they? Chi Ling could feel the thoughts of those remnant souls and almost vomited blood. If it didn't put those remnant souls away, it was afraid that it would be kidnapped by this damn little girl. Chi Ling had no choice but to put away the remnant souls. Seeing this, Yoon Chujio also put away the remnant souls and said with her hands on her waist, Chi Ling, how is it? What other tricks do you have? Quickly let me go. Or else I'll have to build a door again. Chi Ling counted with its fingers. It seemed that there was really nothing that could deal with this abnormal thing. Oh right, it was still poisonous. Poison this stupid girl to death. Therefore, Yoon Chujio was teleported to the 9th floor and thrown into a bubbling poisonous spring. Yoon Chujio did not do anything, and she almost laughed at the Guai Chao in her dantian. Ever since the last incident, due to her guilty conscience, the Guai Chao had tucked its tail between its legs to make grass. Now that the food was in front of her, she naturally could not afford to keep a low profile anymore. She excitedly urged Yoon Chujio to drink the poisonous spring. Yoon Chujio knew that she could not beat Guai Chao, and she also wanted to anger the weapon spirit. Therefore, she took out a cup, filled it with water, and began to drink slowly. Weapon spirit, although you are a black-hearted person, you did a good job. I was thirsty, so you made me such sweet spring water. Thank you. Chi Ling sat on the ground in disbelief. This pervert couldn't even poison the poisonous spring to death? No, impossible. It must be because she drank less, so the poisonous spring hadn't taken effect yet. As long as she drank a little more, she would definitely be poisoned to death. Definitely. Yoon Chujio slowly drank a cup. Guai Chao was anxious. Why didn't she hurry up with the delicious food? What was she waiting for? Thus, the miserable Yoon Chujio once again lost control of her body. Like a little toad, she lay in the poisonous spring and began to fill her stomach with water. At first, the weapon spirit was dancing with joy. Ha ha ha, that little girl must have been poisoned. That was why she lay in the poisonous spring. But, why was the water level of the poisonous spring continuously dropping? When the weapon spirit reacted, more than half of the poisonous spring had been drunk. It was so anxious that it could not hide anymore. It jumped out and shouted, You get out of there. That is my poisonous spring. Yoon Chujio, who had lost control of her body, curled her lips. It was easy to invite the gods, but difficult to send them away. Go Weiba would not give up until he had drunk the poisonous spring. When the weapon spirit saw that Yoon Chujio did not respond, it became anxious. It rushed forward and tried to drag Yoon Chujio out of the poisonous spring. In fact, it could have moved Yoon Chujio to another layer. It was also worried about her. Guai Chao's mind was filled with nothing but food. Now that the weapon spirit had actually stopped it from drinking the poisonous spring, it was not willing to let it go. It directly pushed the weapon spirit into the poisonous spring as well. The miserable weapon spirit was actually poisoned by its own poisonous spring and fainted. Although it would not die, it would not wake up for a while. Guai Chao threw the weapon spirit far away and continued to drink the poisonous spring. Finally, he finished drinking the poisonous spring. Then a wisp of light blue mist rose up. It was the mermaid man. Go Weiba. Hurry up and get back here. Yoon Chujio was extremely excited when she saw that it was the mermaid man. Last time, the mermaid man had disappeared without saying anything. This time she had to get to the bottom of it. Go Weiba was very satisfied and happily handed over the control of his body. Yoon Chujio quickly said, Brother Merman, this is also a part of your soul, right? Where are the rest of your souls being held? I'll think of a way to help you release them. The merman's face was ashen, but he could not say anything important. It was obvious that someone had placed a restriction on him. Yun Chujo saw that the merman was in so much pain, so she quickly said, "If you can't say it, then don't say it. What did you tell me to be careful of last time?" "You have to be careful of Lon." Before the merman could say anything, his body faded again and then disappeared. Lon. Lon what? The name of a place or a person? Or the name of a force? Or was it something else? Or was it south? Difficult? Yun Chujo couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she tried. At this moment the corpse-like Qi Ling came to life. Qi Ling threw herself in front of the poisonous spring and fainted again with a choking sound. Yun Chujo took out the 10,000-year-old black iron chain and tied up the miserable Qi Ling tightly. This Qi Ling looked like a human old man, but it was only 3 feet tall. Qi Ling opened her eyes again and found that she was tied up. She burst into tears. "You damned girl. I'm the Qi Ling of the Shura prison. Many mighty figures died here in the past, but I didn't expect that I would be bullied so miserably by you. I was sleeping underground, but you woke me up with an explosion. It was fine if I woke up with an explosion. You even stole my corpse collection. Not only that, you even chopped my pagoda body into pieces. You also wanted to abduct my remnant soul. The most hateful thing is that you drank all of my Shura spring. How am I going to live in the future?" Yun Chujo touched her nose. It sounded quite pitiful, however. "Hey Qi Ling, if you didn't bring me in, wouldn't there be so many things going on? So the main culprit is still you. This is called throwing a stone at your own feet." Yun Chujia's words were like a handful of salty salt sprinkled on the Qi Ling's wound. Qi Ling was sobbing so much that she was about to cramp up. "All right, we are all 1,000-year-old foxes. Let's not play ghost stories here. Tell me, will you let me out or not? If not, I will make my own door." Qi Ling saw that Yun Chujo took out a big kitchen knife again and said hurriedly, "Little girl, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So this kitchen knife of yours is the Xingtian godly axe, right? How did you get it?" "I took it from a kitchen casually. Is this really the Heaven Punisher divine axe?" Qi Ling rolled her eyes. "Didn't they say that the heavenly thunder spirit root was not tolerated by the heavenly Tao? Why did this little girl get the Heaven Punisher divine axe so easily? Although there were still a few divine weapons in the world, most of them were not divine weapons that could attack people. Many of them were existences like pagodas or cliffs, yet the Heaven Punisher divine axe was actually taken by her just like that. It was really unreasonable. Then how did you get those remnant souls?" Qi Ling asked, almost biting her back teeth. "That's even simpler. Just like what you saw, I told them that the outside world was very exciting, and they followed me." "Just now, if it wasn't for your quick action, your remnant souls would have followed me." Qi Ling choked and fainted again. She didn't want to hit others in the face. By saying that, she simply didn't want it to live anymore. Yun Chujo took out a basin of cold water and poured it on Qi Ling. Qi Ling, who had been drenched like a drowned rat, cried out again, "Stupid girl, do you know where this is? This is Azura prison. Azura prison, do you know? If this was in ancient times, even mighty figures would be afraid of this place, okay? How dare you treat me like this? You're not a human. You're just a pervert." Yun Chujo curled her lips in disdain. "Azura prison? How dare you call this place Azura prison? Did I just barge into Azura prison? I didn't even put in any effort, all right?" Qi Ling felt that he had received another 10,000 critical hits. He almost roared, "That's because you're sick. Besides, the difficulty of this Azura prison is matched with the spiritual power of a human. You're so weak, so of course the test isn't that difficult. Woo-woo, but in the end it's still because you're sick, my Azura spring. You pay for my Shura spring. I should never have used the Shura spring to deal with you, my Shura spring." "Oh right, Qi Ling, let me ask you, who are those corpses that I've collected? If you tell me, I'll be kind enough to return some of the Shura spring to you." Qi Ling's eyes flickered. "Those corpses are the corpses that came in to participate in the test. They're ancient cultivators. What other identities can they have? I've already told you, quickly return the Shura spring to me." "Bah! You're lying. It seems that you're not willing to tell me. How about this, I'll settle for the second best. You give me something good, and I'll return the Shura spring to you. Something good? Qi Ling felt that the best thing it had was the Shura spring. Just as Qi Ling was about to cry about being poor, he heard Yun Chujo say, "Give me the storage rings of those people. Let go of me first and I'll give it to you," Qi Ling said with a twinkle in its eyes. "Swear on your inner demon first, and then I'll let you go." Yun Chujo looked at Qi Ling with a smile. She wanted to play tricks with her, but in her dreams, Qi Ling felt stifled. Why was this black-hearted person so scheming? It could not be deceived. It could only swear on its inner demon before Yun Chujo let it go. Qi Ling took out a bunch of storage rings and said, "It's all here. Return the Shura spring to me." Yun Chujo picked up a few of them and looked at them. There was nothing valuable in them. There were only some spirit tools that were not very valuable. The highest grade spirit tool was only an upper grade spirit tool. However, even the legs of a mosquito were made of meat. Qi Ling looked like a crybaby, but he was actually very scheming. How could the Shura prison's Qi Ling be a fool? After Yun Chujo put away the ring, she said to the Qi Ling, "All right, we're even. Now let me out." "Qi Ling, are you shameless? Where's the Shura spring?" "Stinky little girl, didn't you say that I gave you good things and you gave me the Shura spring?" "Yes, I said that, but what you gave me wasn't good." "Cut the crap. I'll tell you openly that I can't give you the Shura spring. If you continue to dawdle, I'll create a door. Besides, you've already made a mental demon oath just now. If you don't want to die, then hurry up," Yun Chujo said impatiently while holding the large kitchen knife. Qi Ling simply felt that there was nothing left to live for. It was simply having 8 lifetimes of bad luck before meeting her. No, it was 80,000 lifetimes of bad luck. "Little girl, no little fairy, little ancestor, great aunt, you can at least give me a drop, so that I can slowly grow the poisonous spring. Count it as I'm begging you, okay?" Qi Ling repeatedly kowtowed with his hands folded in front, snot running down his nose as he begged with tears streaming down his face. "Put away this set of yours. If you want it, you can give it to me in exchange." Yun Chujo was a black lotus, so she would not fall for Qi Ling's set. Qi Ling had no choice but to take out a sheepskin scroll and a jade token and hand it to Yun Chujo. "Grandaunt, this is the best thing I have. Other than this, I really don't have anything else." Yun Chujo took it and looked at it. It was the same as what she had gotten from the trial tower. Perhaps it would be a great treasure if she gathered it. It was not bad. Yun Chujo persuaded Guai Chao to spit out a drop of Shura spring and returned it to Qi Ling. This time there was no need for Yun Chujo to say it. Qi Ling could not wait to send Yun Chujo out. What a joke. If she did not send her out, she might have to scrape the ground again. Master Bailey and the others were staring at the black tower that was shaking non-stop with their mouths agape. Then they saw a little girl constantly cursing and being bounced out. Everyone was too shocked, so no one thought of catching a certain Joe who had popped out. Fortunately, Master Bailey reacted at the last moment and pushed her horizontally, reducing some of the force. Even so, a certain Joe still fell on her butt. This fellow could be considered to hate the Black Tower. She thought that since she still had to look for trouble in the future, she would come over and chop it a few times. Perhaps the Black Tower knew what Yun Chujo was thinking. It trembled a few times and then quickly sank into the ground. In the blink of an eye, only the bare land was left. The Black Tower disappeared in front of everyone. A certain Joe blinked her eyes. This matter was a little too big. She might be expelled from the sect. She had to think of a way to say it. Thus, this fellow rolled his eyes and fainted. Of course, it was a fake fainting. This fellow was going to use the time when he fainted to think about his excuse. Master Bailey and the others also regained their senses at this time. The first thing they naturally did was to interrogate Yun Chujo. When everyone saw that Yun Chujo had fainted, Master Bailey took out a pill and fed it to Yun Chujo. A certain Joe woke up at the same time. Oh my God! It's so scary. It scared me to death. It's all ghosts. Yun Chujio opened her eyes and shouted, "All ghosts?" Everyone was extremely curious. What exactly was inside the Azura prison? Yun Chujio, do you know that you've made a big mistake? Why don't you tell us the truth? Master Bailey's face was as dark as water. Yun Chujio looked around. Master Bailey, can we go somewhere else? I'm really a little scared here. I'm very timid. Master Bailey snorted and thought to himself, you're timid? A timid person would intrude into the forbidden area in the middle of the night? If he didn't know that this little girl was the #1 enemy of the Divine Devil Hall, he would have guessed that this little girl had evil intentions. However, Master Bailey also felt that this was not a good place to talk. Therefore, everyone left the forbidden area and went to the meeting hall of Yuhing Peak. Tell me what exactly happened. Why did you appear in the forbidden area? What was the situation inside the Azura prison? How did you get out? Master Bailey asked a few questions in a row. Yun Chujio's heart moved. From the meaning of this, they did not know that she used the talisman to blow up the forbidden area. However, it was also true that when she blew up the forbidden area, the patrolling disciples did not see it, so it was easy to deal with. Headmaster, I know my mistake. I happened to pass by the forbidden area and found that there was nothing on it. I was very curious. So, I took advantage of the high moon and dark wind to sneak in. I was really just curious. Who knew that just as I slipped in I heard a few loud bangs, and then I could not move. After that, it was what the patrolling disciples saw. I stuck to the top of the tower and could not move even if I wanted to. Then I was sucked into that damn black tower. Mountain Master He of Yuhing Peak interrupted her and asked, what was the situation inside the black tower? Which floor were you transported to? I don't know which floor I was transported to either. In any case, there were corpses hanging on the stone walls of the house. They were lifelike corpses. I saw that their clothes were not quite the same as ours. They seemed to be people from the ancient times. Ancient times? Mountain Master He and the others were shocked, but they thought it was true. The Black Tower seemed to have a big background. The people trapped inside were obviously from the ancient times. I'm a timid person. How could I have seen such a scene? It scared me. If I hadn't been thinking about evil, I would have fainted. Yun Chujio said while trembling. The silly cuties inside Yun Chujio's spirit beast pouch all had stiff expressions as they listened to Yun Chujio's nonsense. Was she afraid? She was lying. Mountain Master He and the others did not suspect anything. Even if they were to suddenly enter that kind of environment, they would still feel fear. What happened after that? Mountain Master He asked. After that, I saw that the corpses were all fixed to the stone wall and would not harm me. That was why I relaxed a little. However, I could not find the exit even after searching for a long time, so I could only stay on that level. Fortunately, I have food and drink on me, so I'm not hungry, Yun Chujio said happily. The corners of everyone's eyes twitched. You're missing the point, okay? Who asked if you're hungry? Continue, Mountain Master He urged impatiently. I think it's been a long time. Anyway, after I woke up, I was no longer on that level. Guess where I am now? Yun Chujio said mysteriously. Everyone was already speechless. How could she still be able to fall asleep in such a dangerous place? How strange. No one paid attention to her. She had already made a big mistake. Yet she was still keeping them guessing. Seeing that no one was talking to her, Yun Chujio continued to say embarrassedly, when I woke up, I realized that I was actually in the netherworld. That king of hell was old and fierce, and his eyes were like copper bells. There were also ox heads and horse faces that were very scary, but that was nothing. There were screams all around me. Some were put into the pot of oil, some were dug out of their hearts, and some were cut into pieces. I was so scared that I fainted. When everyone heard that, their expressions changed. The netherworld? Could it be that the Azura prison was really connected to the netherworld? Everyone was extremely curious, but Yun Chujio didn't say anything at this time. What's next? Mountain Master he had a quick temper. Seeing that Yun Chujo didn't say anything, he asked anxiously. Yun Chujo laughed dryly. Your disciple's mouth is a little dry. Can you give me a cup of tea to drink first? Mountain Master he was so angry that he almost threw the teapot on her face. However, he was anxious to know what happened next, so he could only personally pour her a cup of tea. After Yun Chujo sipped a cup of tea, she said, That king of hell said that I have committed a grave sin in killing. He wants me to endure all the torture in the 18 levels of hell. I know it's a cycle of suffering. Do you think that the king of hell is sick? Which cultivator hasn't killed before? According to him, wouldn't all cultivators have to go to hell when they die? What nonsense! Everyone nodded repeatedly. They felt that what Yun Chujo said was right. If it was really a sin of killing, they would be much heavier than Yun Chujo. Wouldn't it be even worse? However, the situation is stronger than the person. I don't dare to really point at Yama's nose and scold him. I don't want to really be tortured, so I thought of a way to delay it. I asked the judge to recite the names of all the people I've killed. The time, place, and reason must all be clearly stated. That judge produced a 3-foot-tall book of sins. I also caused trouble from time to time. In the end, cough cough, that judge was so tired that he fainted while foaming at the mouth. Yun Chujo coughed twice and said while touching her nose. Everyone's faces stiffened. This little girl was probably the only one who could think of such a derogatory method and dare to do so. Then that king of hell got angry out of humiliation and said that he didn't want to read the book of sins anymore. He asked the little brat to directly punish me. Of course I didn't want to do it, so I jumped and cursed. I said, this must be the fake king of hell's palace. How could anyone be punished without reading the book of sins? You must be a fake Hades palace. And then those Hades and whatnot disappeared. Yun Chujo spread her hands and said, Mountain Master he and the others were stunned, gone. In an instant they came to a sudden realization. So it was just an illusion. The little girl had accidentally exposed it, which was why the illusion had disappeared. It was luck. This time, without waiting for Mountain Master he to urge her, Yun Chujo continued. A white light flashed before my eyes. When I regained my sight, there was an old man standing 3 feet tall in front of me. It said that it was the weapon spirit of the Azura prison. He said that there was no one to play with him and that he wanted to keep me inside. Of course I refused. However, I knew that I couldn't beat him. After all, the Black Tower was his territory. When everyone heard this, their curiosity was about to explode. The little girl was right. The weapon spirit was the ruler of the Azura prison. Then, how did the little girl escape? I knew that it was impossible to fight it head-on, so I goaded him and said that he couldn't jump as far as I could. Of course he wasn't convinced. So we made a bet. Whoever jumped far could get the other party to do something. Moreover, we both swore an oath in our hearts. You're competing with the weapon spirit in the long jump? Little girl, how can you possibly win against it? Since it's the ruler of the Shura prison, it can naturally appear anywhere. You definitely can't win against it. Mountain Master he shook his head. He felt that Yun Chujo's method was simply stupid. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes. Mountain Master he, why don't we give it a try? I guarantee that we can jump farther than you. Little girl, could it be that you were too frightened inside and are talking nonsense? You can jump farther than me? What a joke. Mountain Master he was so angry that he was amused. Then let's give it a try. If I win, when Master Bailey takes care of me later, please help me talk to him. If I lose, then I will lose 100,000 high-grade spirit stones to you. Yun Chujo said unwillingly. Mountain Master he was a hot-tempered person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have transferred that bad-eyed disciple out of nowhere. Therefore, how could he withstand Yun Chujo's goading? He immediately agreed. The corners of Master Bailey's and the other's eyes twitched. This old he was originally interrogating the disciple. But he had agreed to a long jump competition after being beat around the bush. It was no wonder that the weapon spirit of the Shura prison would agree to this little girl's long jump competition. This little girl could indeed be fooled. However, how could she jump farther than old he? Everyone watched with eager eyes as they saw Yun Chujo draw a line on the ground. With a light leap she jumped more than 10 meters away. It was obvious that she didn't use her full strength. Could it be that this little girl only wanted to give old he 100,000 high-grade spirit stones? So that he could plead on her behalf? Wasn't she looking down on old he too much? How could old he help her for such a small amount of spirit stones? Mountain Master he saw that Yun Chujo jumped so close, and his mouth twitched. He felt that he could surpass her with 30% of his strength. Just as Mountain Master he was about to jump. Yun Chujo said with a smile, Mountain Master he, do you dare to jump somewhere else? Mountain Master he did not know that this fellow was full of bad ideas. He said arrogantly, change a place? Why not? You can choose any place. Even if it's uphill I can jump farther than you. Yun Chujo nodded with a smile. Then she walked to the corner and drew a line 1 foot away from the corner. Mountain Master he, come on. Jump from here. Jump towards the wall. Mountain Master he. Everyone. They finally understood why the weapon spirit had failed. This little girl was too despicable. Qiling was too despicable. Mountain Master he was so angry that his face turned red and his neck was thick. Yun Chujo, you are cheating. Yun Chujo spread her hands. How is this cheating? I ask for your opinion. You said it yourself and let me choose randomly. Of course your mouth is big but my mouth is small. If you don't admit it, I have no objections. Mountain Master his face turned even redder. He could only clench his teeth and say, humph. If you are willing to gamble, you must admit your loss. I will help you plead for mercy in a while. Master Bailey quickly tried to mediate the situation. Yun Chujo, after you won the bet, did you let the Qiling release you? That's right. But I didn't expect that Qiling to be so despicable. She actually sealed my spiritual power before she bounced me out. If it wasn't for your help, I would definitely have fallen miserably. Yun Chujo said angrily. Mountain Master he cursed in his heart. Qiling had done a beautiful job. If he was Qiling he would have done the same. This little girl was too despicable. The crowd asked for more details. He Xinjia's fabricated words were all true, so they weren't afraid of them deliberating. They didn't find any flaws. Then the question now was, how should they deal with Yun Chujo? Trespassing into the forbidden area would definitely be punished. The question was, how should they determine the severity of the punishment? Some peak masters said that the nature was bad, and they had to be expelled from the sect. Some peak masters said that they did not cause any substantial losses. Moreover, because she had discovered the existence of the Azura prison, she could be given a lighter punishment. There were also some peak masters who were neutral and kept silent. A few names suddenly appeared on Yun Chujia's Xiao Hei's account book. When I become your ancestor, I will teach all of you a lesson. Mountain Master he lost the bet. Even though he was 100 times unwilling, he could only help to speak up for her. Sect Master, although Yun Chujo made a big mistake, she did not have any intention of harming our sect. She was just mischievous. Don't punish her too severely. Just as Master Bailey was deep in thought, Yun Chujo wiped her tears with her sleeve. I was wrong. I really know that I was wrong. Although I didn't do it on purpose, I was wrong. If I'm not punished, others will learn from me, and our primordial chaos sect will be in chaos. I invite myself to reflect on the 15th for 3 months. If I can make it through, I'll make it through. I won't blame anyone if I die in there. When everyone heard Yun Chujia's words, they were truly shocked. 3 months of meditation on the 15th was already considered a very heavy punishment for Yun Chujo. This little girl was really impressive. Although Master Bailey felt a little sorry for her, Yun Chujo was right. If she was not severely punished, and other disciples ran to the forbidden area to cause trouble, wouldn't the primordial chaos sect fall into chaos? Therefore, Master Bailey nodded and said, "All right. Then I'll send you to number 15 to meditate for 3 months." Master Zhuo of Tianji Peak hinted at Yun Chujo with his eyes. Yun Chujo understood that he was telling her that he would think of a way to get her out as soon as possible. Yun Chujo looked back with gratitude and felt proud. Did you see that? People should be good at something. If she died, the Snow Jade Silkworm of Tianji Peak would have no one to help Elder Yu. The law-enforcing disciples escorted Yun Chujo to the teleportation array of the meditation cave. Seeing Yun Chujo being escorted here again, the small leader's face froze. She didn't seem to have been out for long. Why did she commit a crime again? The leader took the document from the law enforcement disciples and looked at it. Breaking into a forbidden area? Meditation cave on the 15th? 3 months. This little girl was really seeking death with all kinds of tricks. Yun Chujo stood in the middle of the teleportation formation and said, "Senior brother, come on, let's start the teleportation." The leader reminded Yun Chujo for the sake of the spirit stones, number 15 meditation cave, there will be wind blades and lightning attacks every hour. You have to be careful. Yun Chujo nodded. "I know, hurry up and teleport. Come back as soon as possible." The corner of the leader's eyes twitched. "I think you should die as soon as possible. This is the first time I've seen someone so eager to go to the reflection cave." A white light flashed in front of her eyes. When Yun Chujo regained her sight, it was already the 15th reflection cave. Coincidentally, it was the time when the wind blades attacked. Damn it. Fortunately, I got a lot of defensive spiritual weapons from the weapon spirit. Otherwise, I would have lost half my life. Yun Chujo avoided Qi Ling while criticizing him. The wind blades of number 15 reflection cave were much stronger than number 10 reflection cave. If this guy didn't have enough defensive spiritual weapons, he would have been in trouble. This guy was glad that she was still cautious and didn't choose a higher level reflection cave. It seemed that she should go out and get more defensive spiritual weapons, preferably immortal ones, so that she could be prepared. After 15 minutes, the wind blade finally retreated, followed by several bolts of lightning. She immediately threw her previous thoughts to the back of her mind. For these bolts of lightning, it was worth it to risk everything. The lightning here was much stronger than in cave number 10. While she was being struck by the lightning, she took the time to dig a hole. Otherwise, when the wind blade came again, she would be in trouble. 15 minutes later, although Yun Chujo was reluctant to leave, the lightning still stopped. This guy sighed and continued to dig a hole. He didn't care whether it was flat or not. He had to hide his body first. In the following period of time, this guy was happily struck by the lightning. She felt that if she was struck for 2 or 3 months, she should be able to make a breakthrough. Unfortunately, Mountain Master Zhuo of Tianji Peak was afraid that Yun Chujo would be ordered to stay in the number 15 meditation cave, so he went to Master Bailey every now and then to plead for mercy. In less than a month, the law enforcement department issued a document. They had to release Yun Chujo in advance. The little leader had learned his lesson from the last time, so he first summoned Jinji to ask Yun Chujo about it. He planned to wait for the wind blades to stop before sending Yun Chujo out. Yun Chujo was holding her breath. It wasn't easy for her to find a suitable meditation cave, but old man Zhuo wasn't helping at all. However, it was also her fault. Who asked her to be so versatile? Sai being too outstanding was also a burden. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and talked to Jinji. Jinji repeated Yun Chujo's words with a stiff face. Little Jo said that she knows that she has sinned deeply, so she won't be released early. She has to stay in there for 3 months. Whether it was the leader or the law enforcement disciples, they were all dumbfounded. It was the first time they had met such a weirdo. How could she stay in there and not come out? Was he crazy? With no other choice, the law enforcement disciples had no choice but to return to the law enforcement office and report the matter to Manager Zhong, who then reported it to Elder Chu. Elder Chu went to Tianji Peak and reported the matter to Mountain Master Zhua, who had a stiff expression on his face. What did he mean? Was that little girl crazy? Mountain Master Zhua was so angry that he decided to ignore her. If she was willing to be a sieve inside, then so be it. As long as she wasn't dead, it was fine. The mating period of the snow jade silkworm was still far off. A certain Zhou had been in there for 2 months as she wished. On this day, she felt that she could break through. Yun Chuzhou had the 3 in her dantian spit out a large amount of lightning spiritual force, which she used to break through. The 3 knew that the lightning spiritual force was only aimed at a certain Zhou's dantian, and that it was ultimately still theirs. Therefore, they cooperated and kept on swallowing the lightning spiritual force. 2 hours passed and 4 hours passed. 4 hours later, the cave number 15 was filled with purple lightning. A certain Zhou who was meditating and breaking through disappeared on the spot. The small leader who was guarding the teleportation array was chatting with the other disciples. The topic of conversation naturally could not be separated from Yun Chuzhou. After all, it was the first time in so many years that he had encountered such a weirdo. Boss, you said that Yun Chuzhou is only at the 6th layer of the Lingxian realm, but she stayed in the cave of thought number 15 for 2 months and was still fine. How did she do it? I heard that Yun Chuzhou is very rich. She probably has a lot of defensive spirit tools or even immortal tools on her, so she can naturally last for a long time. You're right, but isn't this burning money? What was she thinking when she was told to come out earlier and not come out? Who knows, maybe she really blames herself? While everyone was discussing, they saw a little girl suddenly appear on the teleportation array. If it wasn't Yun Chuzhou, then who was it? Yun Chuzhou opened her eyes and looked at it blankly. How did she get teleported out after leveling up? Yun Chuzhou waved her claws at the dumbstruck little leader. Then, senior brother, did you teleport me out? The little leader shook his head like a rattle drum. In all conscience, he didn't do anything. Could it be that there's a problem with the teleportation array? Senior brother, come, send me in again. I'll continue to think about it. Yun Chuzhou said with a smile. The leader felt like he was barking a dog in his heart. Generally speaking, since he had already come out, who would still want to go in again? Even if he found a random reason, he wouldn't want to go in again, okay? However, he had no position to prevent Yun Chuzhou from going in, so he could only form a seal again and send Yun Chuzhou back to the number 15 cave of reflection. After Yun Chuzhou returned to the cave, she found a problem. Although the wind blade still blew every hour, the lightning was gone. This guy touched his nose guiltily. Oh my, could it be because of her breakthrough? Could it be that the lightning in other meditation caves was gone too? It shouldn't be, after all, these meditation caves were thousands of miles away. This guy shook his head. This number 15 meditation cave was considered useless, and he couldn't come back anymore. This guy felt that since there was no lightning here, there was no point in staying any longer. He had to think of a way to get out. Therefore, this guy began to paint the wall with mud during the time when the wind blades stopped, so that he wouldn't be too late when he was teleported. When the stone wall was almost painted, this guy sent a message to Jinji, asking her to go to the law enforcement office. He told her that she couldn't hold on any longer and quickly let her out. Little Joe, you didn't come out when I let you out before, and now you're looking for them. Can they let you out? Jinji said with some worry. Don't worry, who asked me to be useful? They will let me out. When you arrive, send me a sound transmission talisman, Yun Chuzhou said confidently. After hearing this, Jinji hurriedly rushed to the law enforcement office. Coincidentally, Manager Zhong was still on duty today. Jinji told him the purpose of her visit. Although Manager Zhong couldn't wait for Yun Chuzhou to die, he was afraid of offending Mountain Master Zhua, so he could only bring Jinji to see Elder Chu. After Elder Chu communicated with Mountain Master Zhua with his identity jade token, he signaled Manager Zhong to bring Jinji to let her out. Jinji heaved a sigh of relief. It had to be said that little Jiu really understood the human heart very well. Everyone arrived at the teleportation array of the reflection cave. The little leader teleported Yun Chuzhou out according to the time agreed upon by Jinji and Yun Chuzhou. Manager Zhong looked at the lively Yun Chuzhou and felt stifled in his heart. This little girl had been locked in there for 2 months, yet she was still unharmed. How was this possible? Could it be that she had been locked in a fake cave of reflection? Before Yun Chuzhou left, she stuffed a few tins of thousands of high-grade spirit stones into the little leader's hands and left. The little leader looked at Yun Chuzhou's back and had a premonition that this little girl would come back again. Jinji knew that Yun Chuzhou went to the cave of reflection for the lightning, so she asked in puzzlement, "Why are you suddenly coming out again?" Yun Chuzhou touched her nose guiltily. "Of course I didn't want to come out earlier, but once I made a breakthrough, all the lightning in the cave disappeared." Jinji stumbled. "What if someone finds out? You won't admit it. Besides, the person who was punished to go to the cave of reflection would rather have no lightning. Why would he tell others? Don't you think so?" Yun Chuzhou said indifferently. Jinji thought it made sense and asked, "Have you succeeded in breaking through? How many levels have you reached?" "This breakthrough is still incomparable to the heavenly lightning. There are only 2 levels. I'm only at the 5th level of the spiritual void tier," Yun Chuzhou said regretfully. The heavenly lightning was more powerful. Jinji glared at her. "Stop trying to be a good girl. What do you want to do if you get 2 levels up at once?" Yun Chuzhou giggled and didn't say anything. One should be content with what one has. In the next few days, Yun Chuzhou went to Mountain Master Zhuo of Tianji Peak to improve her impression of the old man, so that the old man wouldn't get angry. Then she went to Mountain Master He to exchange her experience in the long jump, letting Mountain Master He win against her once. Then she went to Master Bailey to express her determination to change her mind. She mentioned the godly demon palace, which made Master Bailey pay more attention to her and improve his impression of her. Then, he discussed the recruitment plan for the Mulberry Garden with Elder Ding and the other 2, and inspected the growth and development of the Snow Jade Silkworm. This guy felt that these few days had been too fulfilling. It was as if his feet didn't touch the ground. Then, this guy began to wander around the primordial chaos sect. His purpose was obvious: to cheat. It was simply a waste of time outside. It was better to be in the reflection cave. She had to find someone to beat up. On this day, this fellow strolled to Kaiyang Peak. She recalled that when she passed by the teaching hall a few days ago, she saw that there were spirit fruits that were about to ripen. It should be almost ripe by now, so she hopped to the teaching hall. The teaching hall was where the elders taught the inner sect disciples. This was also the unique benefit of inner sect disciples. Outer sect disciples and handymen did not have such an opportunity. There was no one guarding the hall of teaching. After all, no one would randomly barge in. Of course, a certain Jiu had always taken an unusual path. Yun Chuzhou slipped into the courtyard of the hall of teaching. When she saw the red spirit fruits on the branches, she could not help but be overjoyed. She picked one and took a bite without washing it. The juice was rich, sweet, and delicious. Yun Chuzhou finished the one in her hand and began to pull it into her storage ring. She was ready to bring it back for Jinji and Yi Bingyu to taste. Just as she was picking the fruit, the door of the main hall opened and the lesson of the preaching hall ended. An elder came out first, followed by many inner disciples. Yun Chuzhou recognized the elder who had come out. He was Elder Jing, who had designed the entrance test formation. He was the Elder Jing who had planned to eliminate Yun Chuzhou and the other 3. Elder Jing naturally recognized Yun Chuzhou. The reason was simple. He had presided over the entrance test for hundreds of years, but this was the first time he had been slapped in the face by a candidate. How could he not remember? The 2 of them didn't like each other. Yun Chuzhou didn't say anything, and Elder Jing didn't say anything either. Although Elder Jing didn't like Yun Chujo in his heart, he had his own identity, so he naturally wouldn't take the initiative to find fault with her. He snorted coldly and left with a flick of his sleeve. Yun Chujo curled her lips. This old thing really knew how to keep his face. Bah! Just because Elder Jing didn't find fault with them didn't mean that the others wouldn't find fault with him. This was especially so since Elder Jing had never accepted a true disciple, so many people had been sharpening their minds to gain a good impression of Elder Jing. They knew about the matter between Yun Chujo and Elder Jing, so some people had thoughts about it. Stop! Yun Chujo, don't you know that these spiritual fruits can't be picked randomly? Besides, this is the place where inner sect disciples listen to the law. A handyman like you has no right to enter here, so why don't you leave quickly? An inner sect disciple said arrogantly. Yun Chujo ignored him and continued picking the big and red fruits. It was just a dog barking, she couldn't be bothered. Seeing that Yun Chujo ignored him, the disciple couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Yun Chujo, did you hear what I said? Get lost quickly or I won't be polite anymore. Yun Chujo still ignored him and continued picking the fruits by herself. The disciple flew into a rage out of humiliation and flashed to stand in front of Yun Chujo. Yun Chujo walked to the left and he moved to the left. Yun Chujo moved to the right and he moved to the right. The purpose was obvious, he didn't want Yun Chujo to pick the fruits. Yun Chujo then looked at the disciple. What? Do you think that you are very awesome now that you are an inner disciple? Who was the one who was threatened by me to give up the seven-headed man-eating flower with a big kitchen knife? Let me tell you. I was able to control you back then, but I can still do it now. A good dog doesn't block the way. Get lost. It was still all right if Yun Chujo did not say these words. After she said these words, the disciple's eyes were red and filled with hatred. When he had first entered the sect, Yun Chujo had relied on the joint group to force him to hand over the seven-headed man-eating flower, which had been half attacked. He had long held a grudge against her. Now that he had caught Yun Chujo in the wrong, he naturally would not let her go. He could vent his anger and please Elder Jing at the same time. It was simply killing two birds with one stone. That disciple rolled his eyes and said to the other disciples, "Senior brothers and sisters, this teaching hall is a place exclusive to the inner disciples of Kaiyang Peak. This Yun Chujo barged in here on her own accord. Are we just going to let it go like this?" Yun Chujo thought to herself, oh, she even knows how to incite others? She wasn't too stupid. Those inner disciples first came to join in the fun, and second, they really felt that they were superior to others. This teaching hall was exclusive to them, so when that disciple incited them, they began to clamor. Junior brother Wu Shan has a point. This is the place for the inner disciples of our Kaiyang Peak. Yun Chujo, get out. A handyman has the face to come here? He really overestimates himself. Get out. Also, those spirit fruits belong to our Kaiyang Peak. You have to pay for them. Don't you have money? You have to pay us 10,000 high-grade spirit stones for one fruit. Yun Chujo looked at the crowd who were ready to attack her, and her heart was filled with joy. Pengxier was finally going to succeed. Sprinkle. The inner disciples argued for a while. When they saw Yun Chujo smiling at them without saying anything, they felt a little awkward and didn't say anything. Seeing this, the disciple Wu Shan pointed at Yun Chujo and said, Yun Chujo, you still have the face to smile. Compensate us with the money for the spiritual fruit, and then get lost immediately. Yun Chujo waved at Wu Shan and said, you want to compensate us? Come and take it. Wu Shan was skeptical and didn't move. If he were to turn the spirit stones, he wouldn't need to be so close to her. What did this Yun Chujo want to do? What? As an inner disciple, are you afraid of me, a mere servant? Tiske, since you don't dare to come and take it, then you can't blame me. Yun Chujo crossed her arms and said disdainfully. Those inner sect disciples began to clamor. Junior brother Wu Shan, you're not really afraid of her, are you? Can she really fight? Moreover, even if she fights, can you still not beat her? Junior brother Wu Shan, there's still us. What are you afraid of? That's right, junior brother Wu Shan, if you don't go, he'll really look down on you. Although Wu Shan was still feeling a little uneasy, he could not resist the crowd's jeering. He could only walk in front of Yun Chuzhou warily. Give it to me. The corners of Yun Chuzhou's mouth curled up. Everyone could only see an afterimage. When they saw it clearly, Wu Shan was already held by a large kitchen knife at his neck. Yun Chuzhou, what are you doing? Hurry up and let junior brother Wu Shan go. Everyone cried out in surprise. They did not expect Yun Chuzhou to actually dare to make a move. Was she crazy? Yun Chuzhou restrained Wu Shan and then took out a thick stack of explosive talismans. All of you get away from me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. Everyone was first shocked. Then someone said, Yun Chuzhou, who are you trying to scare? If you dare to throw one, try it, boom. Before that person could finish his sentence, an explosive talisman exploded not far away from him. Although he was not injured, he was really scared. You are crazy. Yun Chuzhou shrugged her shoulders. I am not crazy, but if any of you don't know what's good for you, I might really be crazy. All of you step back. Everyone looked at each other. It was obviously not wise to compete with a madman. Although they had the advantage in numbers, that madman had such a thick stack of explosive talismans in his hands. It would not be worth it if they were to fight and get injured. Yun Chuzhou saw everyone step back obediently. Only then did she say to Wu Shan, TSK, you want money from me? You're really audacious. I think you don't know what you're capable of after becoming an inner disciple. Let me help you wake up. After Yun Chuzhou finished speaking, she kicked Wu Shan to the ground, took out a rolling pin, and started to beat him up. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw this. Oh my god, this darn girl was really ruthless. Fortunately, she didn't use force against her just now, or else this madman would really have blown them to death. Wu Shan howled miserably, Yun Chuzhou, you'll die a horrible death. You'll definitely be punished by the sect rules. Oh, you still dare to scold me? I will cut off your tongue and see if you still dare to talk nonsense. Yun Chuzhou took out a dagger and waved it in front of Wu Shan. Wu Shan was so scared that he almost fainted. You dare? Do you think I dare? Yun Chuzhou was about to make a move. Wu Shan was terrified. Yun, junior sister Yun, I was wrong. Please spare me. You were wrong? Where were you wrong? If you had said it to my satisfaction, I wouldn't have cut off your tongue. Otherwise, Yun Chuzhou waved the dagger in her hand. My fault is that I shouldn't speak nonsense. I shouldn't meddle in other people's business. This spirit fruit, you can pick as many as you want. Wu Shan saw that the dagger was getting closer and closer to him, and his face was so pale that he almost fainted. Yun Chuzhou shook her head. Is that all? Also am a bastard. Am a waste. I shouldn't have spoken evil words to you. Is that all? Yes, and them too. They are all meddling in other people's business and spouting nonsense. You can enter the hall of preaching as you please, and pluck as many fruits as you like. Wu Shan was terrified. He didn't care whether he would offend his fellow disciples or not. He had to save his tongue first. The inner sect disciples of Kaiyang Peak were furious. If it wasn't for Wu Shan's instigation just now, would they have joined in the commotion? Now they were being blamed. Wu Shan was really detestable. Yun Chuzhou found it funny in her heart. This Wu Shan was really out of his mind. He would definitely not have an easy life in the future. However, she had only beaten up Wu Shan. Most likely, he could only be locked up in the number 10 thinking cave. It was best to stir up some trouble. Otherwise, she would not have achieved her target of being blackmailed. Just as Yun Chuzhou was worrying that the matter was too light, She heard a shout from the door. Yun Chujio, what are you doing? Hurry up and let that disciple go. Yun Chujio turned around and saw that the person who had come was Elder Jing. It was probably a message from a disciple, or he had heard the sound of the explosive talisman. When Wu Shan saw Elder Jing coming, he shouted with snot and tears in his eyes, Elder Jing, help! Help! Elder Jing wanted to help, but Yun Chujio's kitchen knife was pressed against Wu Shan's neck. He didn't dare to use force. Yun Chujio, did you hear what I said? Let him go before the big mistake is made. Elder Jing said sternly. Yun Chujio's heart skipped a beat. It was not bad to use this old man as a scapegoat. It was just enough for the entry test. However, she definitely could not beat this old man. She would just say it out loud. Elder Jing, you came at the right time. This disciple of yours spoke rudely and seriously hurt my fragile little heart. As the saying goes, a teacher's laziness cannot be taught strictly. Shouldn't you express your gratitude to me? Elder Jing could not react for a long time. He thought that with a shout, Yun Chujio would definitely release Wu Shan and admit her guilt to his face. Who would have thought that not only did Yun Chujio not release him, she even blamed him. Elder Jing pointed at himself. You blame me? Yes. I'm talking about you. Did this trash listen to your class? Since he listened to your class, you are his teacher. He is such a jerk. Shouldn't you bear some responsibility? Elder Jing was almost choked by the rebuke. He pointed at Yun Chujio and said, how is he a jerk? Yun Chujio took a needle and stabbed Wu Shan's waist. Tell me yourself, how are you a bastard? Wu Shan trembled in pain. He had hoped for Elder Jing, but now it looked like he couldn't rely on anyone. He had to rely on himself. Thus Wu Shan said with a trembling voice, I'm a bastard. I'm indeed a bastard. I shouldn't have spoken ill of Junior Sister Yun. I shouldn't have stopped Junior Sister Yun from picking fruits. Elder Jing, did you hear that? He said it himself. As a teacher, shouldn't you apologize to me as well? Yun Chujio said to Elder Jing with a provocative look. Apologize to you? Is it reasonable for you to break into the Hall of Law privately? Is it reasonable for you to privately pick the spirit fruit? Is it reasonable for you to beat up your fellow disciples? Whether it was Elder Jing or those inner disciples, they were all stunned by Yun Chujio's shamelessness. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? Elder Jing had always been a prankster. He did not expect to be threatened by a small handyman today. One could imagine the anger in his heart. Elder Jing's face was gloomy. The pressure on his body rushed toward Yun Chujio. He did not expect that Yun Chujio was fine. On the contrary, Wu Shan was made to spit out a mouthful of blood by the huge pressure. Yun Chujio quickly released her hand. Oh my God, Elder Jing. Are you going to kill him just because Wu Shan told the truth? Wu Shan looked at Elder Jing in disbelief. Was Elder Jing going to treat him like this just because he said something wrong? Elder Jing was so angry that his beard almost stood up. You're talking nonsense. I was obviously trying to use the pressure to force you to release him. Yun Chujio covered her ears. I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it. Bastard scripture. Anyway, Wu Shan was injured by you. You're a petty person. You're not worthy to be their teacher at all. Bastard scripture? Elder Jing was so angry that smoke was almost coming out of his head. Impudent. You're really stubborn. This old man must teach you a good lesson today. As Elder Jing spoke, he suddenly jumped to catch Yun Chujio. He had already thought about it. No matter what face he had to teach this stupid girl a lesson no matter what. Yun Chujio was very smart. She knew that after she said this, Elder Jing would definitely make things difficult for her. So she kicked Wu Shan toward Elder Jing, and then jumped out of the courtyard. This fellow shouted as he ran, oh no! Elder Jing is going to kill someone. Help! Help! Elder Jing was delayed by Wu Shan for a moment. When he regained his senses, Yun Chujio had already disappeared. He could only hear her shouting. Elder Jing was so angry that he almost lost his balance. He gritted his teeth and jumped out of the courtyard, chasing after her closely. Yun Chujio had been all over the Chaos Origin sex blackmailers during this period of time, so she was very familiar with the roads. She especially ran to places with many people. Help! Help! Elder Jing wants to silence me. If I find out, he will kill me as well. Elder Jing, I was wrong. I promise I won't talk nonsense to others. If you want to kill your own disciple, go ahead and kill him. Don't kill me. Elder Jing, don't tell me you are still jealous of what I said during the entrance test? You are taking revenge for your own personal grudge. Isn't your conscience hurting? The ignorant disciples who didn't know the truth heard Yun Chujia shout, and then looked at the ferocious-looking Elder Jing behind her. They immediately believed more than half of it. This Elder Jing usually looked quite kind, but they didn't expect him to be so ruthless. One really couldn't judge a book by its cover. Elder Jing saw the strange looks in everyone's eyes and was so angry that he was twitching. Today, even if Master Bailey begged for mercy, he had to teach this Yun Chujio a lesson. She was really too wicked. However, this little girl was only at the 6th layer of the Lingxian realm. How could she run so fast? Elder Jing chased her to the small square of Shuangyang Peak. He saw that Yun Chujio had already flown far away on the chopping board. Elder Jing rode his sword and chased closely behind. From afar, he could hear Yun Chujio's clear voice shouting to the people below. Help! Help! Elder Jing has done something indescribable. He wants to kill me to silence me. Unspeakable? Everyone suddenly thought, could it be that Elder Jing's 10,000-year-old iron tree has blossomed? Did he take a fancy to a female disciple? Elder Jing heard the discussion coming from below, and almost fell off his sword. Yun Chujio, you're talking nonsense. Shut up. Elder Jing's voice, which contained his spiritual power, spread across dozens of miles. Unfortunately, Elder Jing did not know that some things were smeared more and more. The more he said so, the more the rumor evolved. The final version even had the details. Moreover, the disciples of the primordial chaos sect could communicate with each other using their identity jade tokens. 1 spread 10, 10 spread 100. Soon, more than half of the people of the primordial chaos sect knew of this version. Elder Jing had taken a fancy to a female disciple with a very good figure. He had failed in his pursuit and wanted to silence her, but Yun Chujio had caught him. Now Elder Jing was chasing after Yun Chujio. The identity jade token of Elder Jing, who was chasing after her relentlessly, kept popping out messages. Moreover, the voice transmission talisman in his storage ring kept ringing. Elder Jing sent his spiritual sense in Elder Yuwen. Old Jing, even if you want an old tree to bloom, you have to be more reserved. It's fine if the disciple is unwilling, but you actually want to silence her? Has your conscience been eaten by a dog? Elder Ling Hu said, Old Jing, what's going on? I always thought you were a gentleman, but I didn't expect you to have designs on the female disciple. A rabbit doesn't eat grass near its nest. You really are. Mountain Master He of Yuhing Peak said, Old Jing, you've done something wrong, so how can you still go after the little girl? If you know your mistake, you should change it. Stop it now. Mountain Master Zhuo of Tianji Peak said, Old Jing, if you want to pursue that female disciple, then you should do it properly. Why are you chasing Yun Chujio? Although Yun Chujio has studied the pairing of snow jade silkworms, she's not the moon elder, so she can't help you. Elder Jing was so angry that he fell off the sword. Fortunately, he had high spiritual power, so he used a few big trees to stabilize himself. However, his hair was also scattered, and his clothes were dirty. He couldn't care less about these things. He rode the sword again and continued to chase after Yun Chujio. His eyes were red, and he only had one goal in mind, and that was to kill Yun Chujio to vent his anger. Now whatever sect rules or seniority, all of them should get lost. He had to kill that stupid girl who spouted nonsense today. Yun Chujo heard the rumor that Jinji had told her using her identity jade token. She laughed so hard that she almost fell off the chopping board. This fellow knew that Elder Jing must be mad. There was only one person who could save her now, and that was Master Bailey. Thus, this fellow flew to Dubhe Peak in a hurry. Master Bailey, save me. Elder Jing wants to kill me to silence me. Yun Chujo knew that Master Bailey usually worked in the meeting hall, so she ran into the meeting hall as if she was being chased by a dog. As the sect master of a sect, Master Bailey naturally had many spies. He had already received the report since the matter was so big. However, he only knew a little about it. He didn't know about the law enforcement hall of Shuangyang Peak. He only knew that Elder Jing was crazily chasing after Yun Chujo. What exactly happened? Why is Elder Jing chasing after you? Master Bailey felt a headache. It seemed that Yun Chujo had just come out of the cave of reflection on the 15th a few days ago. Why did she commit another crime? Master Bailey, let's talk about what happened slowly. Can I stand beside you? Otherwise, when Elder Jing comes in later, he will definitely kill me. Although this guy was asking a question, he had already jumped behind Master Bailey. This guy knew that if the matter was blown up, that old man Jing would definitely be red-eyed. It was better to find an umbrella. Master Bailey was about to say something when he saw Elder Jing rush in with disheveled hair and a few leaves on the top of his head. He was in a very sorry state. Master Bailey managed to hold back his laughter with great difficulty and coughed. Elder Jing, how did you end up like this? Elder Jing saw Yun Chujo poking her head out from behind Master Bailey, and was so angry that he was trembling. Master, let's talk about the details later. If you hand Yun Chujo over to me, I will definitely kill her today. Master Bailey coughed unhappily. Elder Jing, since you are so emotional, I will not pursue the matter of your insolence. Even if Yun Chujo made a big mistake, she will be dealt with according to the sect rules. As an elder, how can you kill a disciple privately? When Elder Jing heard Master Bailey's words, he was angry, stifled, and a little wronged. He had never been so cowardly in his life. Just as Elder Jing was about to argue, a few people came to the main hall in a hurry. Besides the 6 peak masters, there were also a few senior elders. Needless to say, they were all here to watch the show. Elder Yuan saw Elder Jing's embarrassed look and laughed so hard that he fell back and forth. Old Master Jing, no wonder that female disciple looked down on you. Look at your honor, you're like a beggar. Elder Jing was already full of anger. Hearing Elder Yuan's teasing, how could he bear it? He immediately gave Elder Yuan a slap. You're spouting nonsense. Elder Yuan also had a fiery temper. How could he just let it go? You old fart. You're indecent yourself, and you still have the cheek to vent your anger on me? It seems that you need a beating. I've wanted to teach you a lesson for a long time. The 2 old men immediately started fighting in the meeting hall. Although they didn't use their spiritual power, their destructive power wasn't small either. The tables and chairs were overturned, and the teacups were smashed into pieces. The meeting hall was in a mess. Master Bailey turned around and glared at the culprit. Yun Chujo shrank her neck and didn't dare to make a sound. Under Master Bailey's shout, Elder Yuan and Elder Jing finally stopped. Perhaps because he had vented some of his anger, Elder Jing calmed down a little. After fixing his hair and using the cleaning spell, he was finally not in such a sorry state. What's going on? Yun Chujo, go downstairs and tell me everything. Master Bailey turned around and glared at Yun Chujo again. Yun Chujo pursed her lips and could only take small steps to go downstairs. She was afraid that Elder Jing would suddenly lose his temper, so she stood beside Elder Yuan. She felt that this old man was more reliable. Elder Yuan was indeed on the right track. He said loudly, little girl, don't be afraid. Tell me everything. With me here, that old thing won't dare to touch you. Thank you, Elder Yuan. I knew there were still many good people in this world. Yun Chujio started to put on a high hat. Elder Yuan nodded in satisfaction. Tell me what exactly happened. Which female disciple did that old bastard take a fancy to? Yun Chujio shook her head in confusion. Female disciple? Wu Shan is a man. What? The crowd looked at Elder Jing with even more strange gazes. Could this old fart have some unspeakable hobby? No wonder he wanted to silence her. Elder Jing was not stupid. He almost fainted from anger when he saw the crowd's gazes. If Yun Chujio had not hidden behind Elder Yuan, he would have strangled her to death. You tell me the whole story. How outrageous, how infuriating. Elder Jing felt that he should have thought of a way to prevent this scourge from entering the sect. It was a mistake, a step at a time. Yun Chujio shrunk her neck. Am I not speaking now? Why are you in such a hurry? If you weren't so hot-tempered, we wouldn't have ended up like this, would we? Elder Jing finally suppressed the urge to kill someone and roared, Speak quickly. Don't talk nonsense. All right, just speak. It's like this. When I was strolling around, I discovered that the spirit fruits in the Shuangyang Peak Dharma Hall had ripened. I thought that it would be a waste if I didn't pick the fruits, so I planned to give them to the sect master, the peak masters, and the elders to have a taste. Elder Jing almost puked out of anger. This little girl was really too shameless. She even gave them to the sect master? To the peak master? Pooey. She was clearly craving for them. Master Bailey and the others naturally knew that Yun Chujio was lying, but no one exposed her. They just listened to her continue. I just picked a few and the class of the Hall of Teaching ended. As you all know, Elder Jing and I weren't too happy about the entrance exam, so Elder Jing ignored me and left. Unexpectedly, one of Elder Jing's disciples, Wu Shan, scolded me out of boredom. It was nothing more than derogatory remarks about me being a handyman or something, and he even tried to extort my spirit stones. As you all know, I'm willing to sacrifice my life and money, so of course I won't give it to him. The corners of everyone's eyes twitched. This guy was still self-aware. He was indeed willing to sacrifice his life and money. Yun Chujio continued. When that Wu Shan saw that I didn't give in, he instigated the rest of the people to gang up on me. I'm so weak. If they gang up on me, wouldn't I be dead? So I struck first to gain the upper hand. Cough cough, I beat that Wu Shan up. The corners of everyone's eyes twitched again. Those disciples weren't stupid. How could they risk being punished to gang up on you? You were the one who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Originally, that Wu Shan had already admitted his mistake after being influenced by me. I didn't expect Elder Jing to appear. He scolded me without even asking the truth. I couldn't hold back my little temper at that time. I pointed out that I couldn't teach him the laziness of a strict teacher. If Wu Shan made a mistake, he would also bear the blame. I didn't expect him to be so angry out of humiliation that he injured Wu Shan with his coercion. I saw that he was so ruthless. If I didn't run, wouldn't I be waiting for death? So I ran and he chased after me. That was the whole process. Yun Chujio spread out her hands after saying that, indicating that she was very innocent. Mountain Master, he asked in puzzlement. Then why did everyone say that Elder Jing pursued a female disciple and killed her to silence her? In the end you caught him, so he wanted to kill you? Yun Chujio shook her head in confusion. Heaven and earth have a conscience. I only said that Elder Jing did something indescribable. I was referring to him using his aura to injure Wu Shan. I didn't say anything about a female disciple. Indescribable things? The corners of everyone's eyes twitched violently again. You said it ambiguously, so naturally, it would make people think that this little girl was too much of a troublemaker and was crafty and cunning. No wonder Elder Jing was so angry that he really needed to be taught a lesson. Elder Yuan glared fiercely at Yun Chujio. Nonsense. The teaching hall was originally a place for inner sect disciples to listen to the law. What would a handyman like you do there? Moreover, the spiritual fruits there are picked by specialists. How can they be picked casually? You actually injured an inner sect disciple and provoked an inner sect elder. It's an unpardonable crime. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes. You taught me a lesson. I know my mistake. However, if Elder Jing told me properly, I would naturally know my mistake. Who asked him to scold me when he came up? He even planned to kill me with his coercion. I think he will seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Occasionally missing content. Please report errors in time. You're spouting nonsense. When did I scold you? I only asked you to let Wushang go, Elder Jing said angrily. Yun Chujo pouted. Anyway, your mouth is big but my mouth is small. Whatever you say is fine. Elder Jing was so angry that his head was buzzing. This wretched girl was really too crafty. When she said this, anyone who heard it would think that he was bullying others. Seeing this, Master Bailey rubbed the space between his eyebrows and coughed. Yun Chujo, it's wrong for you to intrude into the Hall of Law. It's wrong for you to steal the spirit fruit. It's also wrong for you to beat up an inner sect disciple. It's even worse for you to provoke and slander Elder Jing. Do you know your mistake? I know my mistake. When I ran away just now I read the sect rules. I should go to number 12 to reflect on my mistakes. However, I feel that I have committed a great sin. I must learn from my mistakes. Please punish me to reflect on the 14th for 2 months. Yun Chujo said with her head drooping. Master Bailey thought that Yun Chujo would try to defend herself. He didn't expect that not only did she plead guilty, but she also asked for a heavier punishment. Could this little girl have gone crazy intermittently? Could it be that she had gone crazy just now and was fine now? Master Bailey didn't know that this fellow felt that she might not be able to bear the pain in the number 16 meditation cave, and number 15 had been damaged by her, so he could only go to the number 14 meditation cave. Seeing that Master Bailey didn't say anything, Elder Jing snorted. Master, you won't protect this little girl, will you? Master Bailey looked at him unhappily. Elder Jing, as an elder of a sect, how can you speak ill of her? Yun Chujo had made a mistake, so naturally, I will not protect her. However, the punishment in the Cave of Reflection on the 14th is a little too heavy. What do you think? Master Bailey looked at Mountain Master He and the others, wanting to hear their opinions. Mountain Master He was straightforward and immediately said, last time, this little girl was still alive and kicking in the Cave of Reflection on the 15th for 2 months, right? The 14th shouldn't be a problem either. She has committed many crimes, so she should be punished even more. Yun Chujo cursed in her heart. She had jumped far away from him for nothing, and he didn't even try to talk to her. Although she didn't need to, it comforted her a little. While this guy was cursing in her heart, the other mountain masters spoke up one after another. None of them tried to talk to her, and even Mountain Master Zhua of Tianji Peak didn't try to talk to her. This was because everyone had the same thought as Mountain Master He. Firstly, it wouldn't kill her to go to the Cave of Reflection on the 14th. Secondly, this little girl was too wicked, and she should be taught a lesson. Elder Jing, who was at the side, felt a little better. Before Master Bailey could express his opinion, Yun Chujo sniffled, Sect Master, the seniors are right. I was too reckless. Please send me to the number 14 Reflection Cave. In addition, I will publicly apologize to Elder Jing and restore his reputation. Everyone was quite surprised by Yun Chuji's last sentence, especially Elder Jing. Master Bailey nodded his head in gratification. It's great that you can correct your mistakes. How about this, Elder Yuan? Take Yun Chujo to the Shadow Stone in the Square of Origin to apologize, and then send her to the law enforcement office. Elder Yuan nodded his head in agreement, and the crowd dispersed. Elder Yuan led Yun Chujo in front, while Elder Jing followed behind angrily. He didn't think that Yun Chujo would really apologize, so he planned to follow her to take a look. Yun Chujo kept shouting along the way, from the south to the north. I'm going to the Mixed Origin Square to apologize. Those who want to go take a look, hurry up and occupy the place. If you're late, You won't be able to see anything new. Elder Yuan and Elder Jing were dumbfounded. This was the first time they had seen an apology made with such a big fanfare. This Yun Chuzhou was simply too thick-skinned. The crowd had long been watching the commotion in the meeting hall. Now that they heard Yun Chuzhi's clamor, they naturally all ran to the Chaos Square. Since the Chaos Square was big enough, there was no need to be afraid of not being able to stand. When Yun Chuzhou arrived with Elder Yuan, there were already quite a number of people standing in the primordial Chaos Square. Yun Chuzhou cursed in her heart. It seemed that the life of the primordial chaos sect's amateur culture was very lacking. There were actually so many people here to listen to her apology. It was really a pain in the ass to have so much free time. There were already disciples who had prepared the Shadow Stone long ago. When Yun Chuzhou apologized, they would record the entire process. At that time, they would play it repeatedly in the primordial Chaos Square for a few days. This way, Elder Jing's reputation would be restored. Yun Chuzhou walked to the high platform opposite the Shadow Stone and coughed. That everyone quiet down. I'm going to apologize. Everyone quieted down and looked at Yun Chuzhou, who was standing on the high platform. Yun Chuzhou felt that this feeling was not bad. It was the focus of everyone's attention. Unfortunately, she was here to apologize. If she was here to brag or something, it would be pretty awesome. Fellow disciples, I am here today to apologize. But before I apologize, let me introduce myself first. I am Yun Chuzhou, a handyman from the Big Kitchen. Although I am only at the 6th level of the Lingxian realm, my eyes do not rub sand. If anyone dares to provoke me, even if they are inner sect disciples, I will still beat them up. I have already gone to the Cave of Reflection several times. As the saying goes, once you are new, twice you are familiar. If any of you are not afraid of being beaten up, feel free to provoke me. I will welcome you all at any time. Also, if anyone speaks ill of me behind my back and I hear it, I'll kill you. Elder Jing was so angry that he almost passed out. Was this an apology? She was clearly here to flaunt her power. Just as Elder Jing was about to speak, he heard Yun Chuzhou change the topic and said, "All right, what happened before is irrelevant. Today I'm mainly apologizing to Elder Jing. As a handyman, I shouldn't yell at Elder Jing. I shouldn't speak ill of him, and I shouldn't say ambiguous words to mislead everyone. There has never been a female disciple. The disciple I'm talking about is a man named Wu Shan. I sincerely apologize to Elder Jing now. I've let you down. I shouldn't go around spouting nonsense. Please forgive me and forgive me." As soon as Yun Chuzhou finished her words, the crowd in the square exploded. What? So Elder Jing likes that Wu Shan.